Chapter 1827. It can't be. Xiao Hua was somewhat anxious, but he turned his eyes and slightly tilted his head. Sure enough, Qian Diheng, who was not far away, was giving him a slight wink. Thus, Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he could only helplessly say, "All right, since Grandmaster Qian has said so, how could this junior dare not agree?" Ha ha ha, great. Gantian rubbed his palms and stood up. He didn't return the jade to Xinjia and said, "I haven't been to Lightning Field in a long time. Let's go and have some fun. I'll help you all make a decision today." Helplessly he frowned. The main character today was Cui Hongshan. It was his opening day. Who knew that all the glory would turn to Xiao Hua? Now that he was going to enter Lightning Field, this wasn't a good sign for Cui Hongshan's opening. Only, looking at Gantian's excited look, how would helplessly dare to say anything? He could only turn around and smile bitterly at Zhuo Minghui. Her expression was the same. "Junior will go and get that item." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "I'll go with you." Xiang Yang smiled. "Don't, I will go." Qian Diheng interrupted, "If you all run, what will happen to my great-grandfather?" "You?" Zhen Weixing was about to smile crookedly. Xiang Yang definitely wouldn't let Xiao Hua run. However, if Qian Diheng followed, the chances of Xiao Hua running would be much higher. You go with Xiao Hua. Come back quickly. I'll wait for you all at Lightning Field." Gantian waved his hands. "Disciple. Disciple also wants to go." Sun Shu and Xue Xue said at the same time. Sun Ming looked at Gantian. Gantian waved his hands and smiled. "It's good that two people go to Xunlei Palace." Yes, two crisp voices like that of Orioles rang out. Not to mention Zhen Weixing teaching Yan Xufeng secrets and finding a way to win. Not to mention Zhen Jia and Sun Ming accompanying Gantian to Lightning Field, Qian Diheng accompanying Xiao Hua out of the cave. He immediately grabbed Xiao Hua and asked in disbelief, "Junior brother Xiao, you really didn't use Xiongniao milk?" "Of course I didn't." Xiao Hua shook his head. "Sigh, then, it's all my fault." Qian Diheng said dejectedly, "I delayed using it for a long time because I was afraid that he would ask about it." "Who would have thought that you haven't used it after so long?" "I feel the same." Sun Shu bit his lips, which were somewhat pale. "I didn't tell you the truth until junior sister Xue's escape techniques suddenly improved. Master only noticed it." "Ha, it's nothing." Xiao Hua waved his hand. "It has nothing to do with you, it's all my fault, I was too worried about personal gains and losses." Alas, Qian Diheng sighed again. He clapped his hand and took out an item from his storage pouch, handing it to Xiao Hua. He said, "This is from your grandfather. I thought you wouldn't need it." "This?" Xiao Hua looked at it and a strange expression appeared on his face. Hee, how is it? Who would have thought that it would really become yours?" Qian Diheng seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of craftiness appeared on his face. Xue Xue didn't ask much, and also took out an item and handed it to Xiao Hua. "This is also I's choice." Sun Shu also smiled bitterly and said, "However, if junior brother Xiao didn't speak up today, I'm afraid my master would have returned empty-handed. I believe that in a few days, my master will give you a great reward." Then let's make the reward even greater." Xiao Hua received the two items with a smile. After Xiao Hua put away the two items, he said, "Little brother didn't do it entirely for martial ancestor Sun Ming. The majority of it was for my own sake. And I understand this." Sun Shu glanced at Xue Xue and said in a low voice, "You only have one drop left. You gave half a drop to Ancestor Qian, but without my master's share, I'm afraid junior sister Shui will be wronged. Moreover, this half-drop is also a disaster. If you don't give it all to others, no one will come to find trouble with you. Haha, exactly. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, in the future, I will have peace of mind. No one will come to find me because of this. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng's faces were slightly bitter. Wasn't this all because of them? Of course, after Xiaohua told them what happened, if Sun Ming and Gantian didn't come, they wouldn't know how Xinjie would deal with them. Only then did the guilt of the two slightly ease. That's right, the thing that Jin Weixin gave Xinjie is obviously something that Xinjie doesn't know. How did it become some ancient god technique? If it's nothing, wouldn't Xiaohua be at a disadvantage? Shue's eyes turned slightly, changing the topic. Hee, don't worry, junior sister Shui. Qian Diheng patted his chest and said, since great-grandfather nodded his head and agreed, your item can't be wrong. Moreover, although Xinjie doesn't know what it is, he is a golden core cultivator. If he says it is, then it is. Great-grandfather can only agree. Oh, that's good. Shui smiled sweetly at Xiaohua. Ancient fire control god technique, this Jin Weixin really knows how to make things up. Qian Diheng curled his lips, if it's true, he would have comprehended it long ago. Why would he take it out? Moreover, even Xinjie doesn't know, but why did great-grandfather agree? Junior brother Qian, don't forget that ancestor Qian didn't let go once he took it. It seems, it really is a good item. Sun Shu noticed the details. And I understand great-grandfather's words. My question is, what is in this jade? Qian Diheng scratched his head. Won't it be fine after Xiaohua wins against that guy? What's the use of thinking about it now? Sun Shu said in annoyance. Shui was a little worried and said in a low voice, Xiaohua, are you confident? Him. Qian Diheng curled his lips again. This Xiaohua is the #1 expert under Foundation establishment in the Imperial Thunder sect. Oh, he should be the #1 expert under Foundation establishment in the Xiaoyu continent. If he can't do it, no one can. Sun Shu also nodded his head, thinking back to that year, junior brother Xiao killed for Qi refining stage 12 cultivators by himself. That prestige, TSK, even I feel satisfied when I think about it. Yan Xiefeng of Swallow Thunder Ridge was like an egg striking a rock. Junior brother Xiao, do you think you should use the flying sword talisman to assassinate that guy or use the cloud suppressing seal to smash that guy to death? Or use that black thing of yours to smash that guy into meat paste? Qian Diheng was planning a way for Yan Xiefeng to die. And I know what to do. Xiaohua didn't express his opinion. His gaze was calm as if he was considering something. Qian Diheng was overjoyed when he saw the situation. He knew that there would be an exciting battle to watch. Along the way, he talked a lot and taught Xiaohua how to kill Yan Xiefeng. Like Gantian, he wasn't afraid of things getting out of hand. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The Thunder Arena was a special place in the Imperial Thunder sect. Even the low-level disciples didn't know where it was. Within every lightning palace, there was a place where one could teleport to the Thunder Arena. This teleportation place was called the Life and Death Temple by the disciples. The disciples who entered the Thunder Arena had to be accompanied by their elders. The most important thing was that every disciple had to have a life and death contract. Without the contract, the Life and Death Temple wouldn't open. Chapter 1828. Seismic Thunder Palace's Life and Death Temple was in a side hall, guarded by disciples on duty. The disciples on duty didn't recognize Sun Shu and the others, but they recognized Xinjie, Jin Weixin, and helplessness. Seeing Xinjie come with Gantian, they knew he was a teacher. One of them bowed and asked respectfully, Ancestor Jin, why did you come to the Life and Death Temple? I have a disciple who wants to enter the Life and Death Temple. Go and call the deacon on duty today. Jin Jia said solemnly. Please wait a moment. Disciple will go and find Uncle Zhen Hongwen. The disciple was very smart, smiling and leaving. Not long later, Zhen Hongwen came. He was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. Seeing that the person in front was Gandian from Qian Thunder Palace, he quickly walked over and bowed. Forget it. Gandian flicked his sleeves, I'm here to make a decision, no need to be so polite. Uncle Qian is going to make a decision. Zhen Hongwen was stunned, looking at Jin Jia and Sun Ming. He muttered in his heart, it can't be these two seniors, right? However, he didn't say much, at the same time greeting Sun Ming and Jin Jia. After the greetings, Zhen Hongwen looked at Helplessness and Jin Weixing, thinking maliciously, could it be these two? But even so, there's no need for Uncle Qian to make a decision, right? Senior brother Zhen. Zhen Weixing cupped his hands, I have a disciple who wants to enter the Thunder Arena with a disciple of Senior brother Helplessness. Senior brother Zhen, please make some preparations. What? Your disciple? Zhen Hongwen was confused. Zhen Weixing was only at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. His disciple was at most Qi refinement. A competition between Qi refinement disciples. Did a late-stage Golden Core cultivator need to participate? Helplessness's disciple. Zhen Hongwen was still thinking, Xiang Yang definitely isn't, could it be? At this moment, Gantian laughed coldly, why is your seismic Thunder Palace's Life and Death Temple so slow? Making preparations so slow. Yes, disciple will deal with it now. Zhen Hongwen's expression froze, and he immediately replied. After speaking, he patted his hand and took out a triangular jade plate from his storage bag. He pressed his hand on one of the corners and a finger-shaped imprint appeared on it. Red and blue light emitted from the edge of the imprint and slowly spread towards the other two corners. When one of the two corners turned pure red and the other pure blue, Zhen Hongwen said in a low voice, which two disciples want to enter the Thunder Arena? Please take out your identity medallion and imprint your imprint on this life and death contract. Yes. Yan Xiefeng responded and stepped forward. He took out his identity token and activated it with his Fa Li. A misty brilliance appeared on the token and went into one of the pure red horns. Where the brilliance fell, it was like a stone falling into water, creating a layer of ripples. When the brilliance calmed down, 3 black words appeared on the pure red horn. It was Yan Xiefeng. Where's the other disciple? Zhen Hongwen raised her eyes and asked again, but her gaze was fixed on the several aura refining disciples next to Cui Hongshan. Junior brother Zhen, I's disciple isn't here yet. Helplessness quickly said. Although Helplessness was the senior brother, Zhen Hongwen was the deacon of the Life and Death Temple. His position was much higher than Helplessness's. His face was obviously cold. Since he isn't here, why did you ask I to come? Also, why did you ask Senior Uncle Qian to come too? His tone wasn't polite at all. This little fellow is really long-winded. Gantian coldly snorted and said, I haven't been impatient, but you're the first to be impatient. You can just wait here. Yes, disciple understands. Zhen Hongwen's heart tightened. He definitely didn't expect Gantian to speak for Helplessness. He hurriedly bowed and replied. Thus, the group of people stood in front of the Life and Death Temple quietly. No one dared to speak. Not long later, another 5 cultivators came over. They were all at the Foundation Establishment realm. The 2 at the front were at the Foundation Establishment realm. Their faces were also ugly. They probably wanted to enter the Thunder Arena to settle their grievances. Who's on duty? One of the thin cultivators looked weak, but his temper was explosive. Before he even got close, he scolded. Junior is on duty. Does Senior want to enter the life and death temple? The disciple who welcomed them immediately walked up. Nonsense, if I'm not entering the life and death temple, why am I here? Junior brother, I am here. Shen Hongwen hurriedly walked past them and cupped his hands. I Su Ming greets Senior brother. That cultivator was obviously unhappy and wasn't too respectful. He slightly bowed. I want to enter the Thunder Arena with this fellow. Senior brother, please handle it. This. Shen Hongwen was a little hesitant. Gantian was standing in front of the Life and Death Temple and was blocked by several people. He wanted to enter the Thunder Arena to rule others. Should he enter first? What's wrong? The person in front hasn't died yet. Su Ming asked him politely. Shen Hongwen seemed to understand the feelings of the cultivators who came to the Thunder Arena. He wasn't angry and smiled. That's right. Junior brother Su, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while. Su Ming glanced at the cultivator on the left and laughed coldly. Then let this fellow live a little longer. We still don't know who will live and who will die. That cultivator didn't seem to be afraid and retorted. The three people behind were obviously the teachers of the two and knew each other. Their faces were filled with worry. Seeing that there were people in front of them, they exchanged glances and walked in front of the two, whispering something. However, it was obvious that Su Ming was impatient. His face was filled with respect and he seemed to listen to everything they said. However, his eyes occasionally glanced at the other party and flashed with a vicious light. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, there was still no movement in front. Su Ming couldn't take it anymore and shouted, Senior brother Jin. The people in front. Why are they dying so slowly? Why aren't you moving aside? Humph! A sound rang out and Su Ming's brain exploded. It was as if an awl had pierced into it. "Io!" Su Ming cried out and fell to the ground. Where are you from? Don't you know first come, first served? Why aren't you being respectful in front of us seniors? It was actually Jinjie's voice. Since you want to die, I'll let you die now so that the seniors of the Heavenly Thunder Palace don't have to watch the show. Xinjia. Martial Uncle Jin. Only now did Su Ming's teacher see Xinjia in front of the crowd, followed by Sun Ming and Gantian. The three of them were shocked and wanted to bow and greet in a panic. You wait first. How could Xinjia let them go forward? He flicked his sleeves and said, wait until I'm done with senior brother Qian, then it'll be your turn. Yes, yes. Su Ming's teacher hurriedly nodded and then helped Su Ming up. Su Ming's face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear. This golden core stage cultivator's ability was really strange. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, with the persuasion of teacher Su Ming's expression actually eased up. The two opponents who had previously been ready to fight to the death on the Thunder Field, under the escort of the teachers from both sides, cupped their hands toward Shen Hongwen and turned to leave the side hall. However, when they left, they didn't dare to say goodbye to Xinjia. Chapter 1829. The five of them left the side hall and didn't walk far when they met two men and two women. One of them was a tall and thin aura refining disciple holding an extremely ugly sword embryo. He asked very respectfully, Martial Uncle, may I know how to enter the view of life and death of my thunderous palace? Needless to say, this aura refining disciple was Xiaohua. This guy also just found out that entering the Thunder Field required passing the view of life and death, and he didn't know about the Thunderous Palace's view of life and death. Yes, it's just ahead. Su Ming's master pointed and then advised, there is a Jin Dan martial uncle in front of the view of life and death. If you want to enter the Thunder Field, come back later. Yes, thank you, martial uncle. Xiaohua cupped his hands and led Qian Diheng and the others in the direction of the view of life and death. Alas, why are the disciples nowadays all the same as Su Ming? Su Ming's master sighed, you can't even listen to the words of your elders. It's obviously not a big matter, but you have to make a big fuss. If it weren't for the delay in front of the view of life and death today, you two who were originally on good terms with each other would be separated by life and death. Master, can't you say a few words less? Ouch. Su Ming held his head and whispered in shame and anger, we were just talking about others, why are you talking about disciples again? Immediately, Su Ming came to his senses and turned to look at the backs of Xiaohua and the others. They shouldn't be the disciples that Martial Uncle Zhenjie is waiting for. No, two aura-refining disciples, two disciples who just entered the Foundation establishment realm. How could they be worthy of waiting for Heavenly Thunder Palace's Jindan cultivators? Another cultivator said resolutely. Why not? Su Ming asked again, obviously unconvinced. What? Still. That person also asked back, but before he could speak, Su Ming's master quickly pulled the two people and said, who cares who they are waiting for, let's go first. Xiaohua and the other three had just entered the side chamber when they were greeted by Xiang Yang, who had been waiting for them. Xiang Yang's first words were, Junior brother, the Thunder Arena is not that easy to enter and exit. You should carefully consider it. Just now, I saw with my own eyes that the two senior and junior brothers who were originally going to enter the Thunder Arena, after a period of delay, have both calmed down and now have returned. Looking at this elder martial brother who always tried to be nice, Xiaohua said with a smile, now that things have come to this, can this little brother withdraw? Exactly. Qian Diheng didn't like Xiang Yang and said snappily, wait until junior brother Xiao kills that guy, then it won't be too late for you to say this. Xiang Yang sighed and brought Xiaohua to Zhenjie and the others. This is the item from beyond the heavens. When Gantian saw the great wisdom sword in Xiaohua's hand, he was stunned. Xiaohua handed Hanya over with a smile and said, it's this thing. However, other than the fact that it's especially heavy, it's just that it's not controlled by divine sense. There's nothing special about it. And Gantian swept with his spiritual sense, and as Xiaohua said, he reached out to take it. Grandmaster Qian, this thing is really heavy. Xiaohua reminded. Gantian glanced at Xiaohua. If it was someone else, he would have scolded them. Xiaohua didn't dare to say anything more and released his hand. Unexpectedly, Gantian casually picked up the great wisdom sword and even waved it around in his hands. His face didn't reveal any weird expression as he nodded his head. As expected, it is heavy. However, to say that it's an item from beyond the heavens is a little too mysterious. It's just like that ancient god technique, it complements each other. When Zhenjie heard those words that were obviously mocking him, he acted like he didn't hear anything. Gantian looked at Zhenjie and said, this thing obviously has nothing to do with spells. Even if Xiaohua got it, he would just throw it to the side. Junior brother Zhen decided to use the jade to bet with this thing. Zhenjie didn't hesitate and smiled, I have stood with senior brother Qian for so long, how can I not count? Wouldn't that be letting senior brother see my shocking Thunder Palace as a joke? Okay. Gantian smiled, I am just a judge, giving you guys a reminder before entering the Life and Death Temple. Then, he said to Xiaohua, go, I will take this thing first. If you can't come down from the lightning field, I will pass it to junior brother Zhen. Yes, disciple understands. Xiaohua bowed and turned around to look at the cultivator guarding the Life and Death Temple. Zhen Hongwen walked over and took out the triangle and asked, are you Wu Hai's disciple? Junior is Wu Hai's disciple Xiaohua. Xiaohua replied. Do you want to sign a life and death contract with Yan Xifeng to enter the Life and Death Temple and enter the lightning field? That's right. Okay, take out your identity token and sign on this life and death contract. Shen Hongwen said expressionlessly. Xiaohua pondered for a moment and immediately understood the spell. He took out his identity token from his storage bag. The spell was the same as Yan Xiefeng's. A misty light flashed from the token and landed on the life and death contract. However, when the red and blue light surged, it spread to the last corner of the contract until it was completely blue. Two black words, Xiaohua's, appeared there. The masters of the two disciples, please come over. Shen Hongwen raised her head again. Wu Hai and Jin Weixing had already come forward. They each took out their tokens and signed their names in the middle of the life and death contract where Yan Xiefeng and Xiaohua's names were respectively. Three martial uncles, please wait. Shen Hongwen walked to the front of the life and death temple. It was originally a very ordinary projector wall. Shen Hongwen walked to the front of the projector wall and took out a diamond-shaped token. She cast a spell on the token and the token immediately emitted an emerald green light beam. After the light beam reached the air, it gradually condensed into the shape of a ball. Shen Hongwen snorted and changed the spell in her hand again. She slowly pushed the ball toward the projector wall. When the ball entered the projector wall began to slowly vibrate like a chicken being split open. From the middle, a crisscrossing gap appeared. Go! Shen Hongwen didn't dare to be negligent. She threw the token in her hand into the gap and it turned into an emerald green light and disappeared. After the light disappeared, the gap gradually split open. It revealed a flat surface that was as smooth as a bronze mirror. This is the life and death temple? Xiaohua looked at it without blinking and said in his heart. The surface of the mirror was oval, and there were many runes engraved on the surrounding frame. These runes were also emerald green and faintly flowed in the brilliance. Even in the mirror, there was no reflection at all, only some runes were faintly discernible. Shen Hongwen paused for a moment and threw the life and death contract in her hand into the mirror. With a shwa sound, like the surface of the water being lifted, a red and blue brilliance appeared from the place where the life and death contract fell. This brilliance was like a door, red on one side and blue on the other, slowly moving to both sides. Chapter 1830. When the mirror was divided into red and blue, Jin Hongwen turned around and said, Yan Xiefeng, Xiaohua, the life and death view has been opened. You too can enter the thunder field according to the color shown by your names. I want to remind you that as long as you step into the life and death view, the life and death inside, you are not responsible. Do you want to go in? Thank you, Martial Uncle, we will go in. Xiaohua and Yan Xiefeng bowed. Shen Hongwen didn't know how many times he had heard this reply. He casually nodded and waved his hand, retreating a few steps. Senior brother Xiao, please. Yan Xiefeng looked at the red and blue doors and raised his hand. Okay. Xiaohua didn't hold back. Looking at Yan Xiefeng, who was like a dead person, he stepped into the blue side. Xiaohua only felt his vision darken. Instantly, a kind of teleporting pressure came from all directions. However, in the blink of an eye, the pressure disappeared. When Xiaohua focused his eyes, he saw that he was inside a light barrier flickering with a light blue brilliance. And the countless lightning on the light barrier was the restriction outside the light barrier. Xiaohua released his spiritual sense and felt that the space inside the light barrier was extremely large. His spiritual sense couldn't reach the end. Space magic. Xiaohua immediately understood. Xiaohua, Yan Xiefeng, are you two ready? Shen Hongwen's voice came again. Xiaohua raised his head and said, Disciple is ready. After 10 breaths, an illusion will appear in the thunder field. As for what illusion, I don't know. You can do whatever you want in this illusion. all magic tools and treasures won't be affected. Jin Hongwen's voice was like the sound of nature. You two, either one dies, one admits defeat, or the other accepts. Otherwise, you can't leave the Thunder Field. Of course, I, Uncle Master Zhen, and the others all saw your fight. Now that Uncle Master Gantian is here to judge, he will definitely give you justice. Then, Jin Hongwen's voice disappeared. After 10 breaths, Xiaohua only felt that his eyes were bright. It was so bright that he couldn't help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. In front of Xiaohua's eyes was a beautiful immortal world. Not to mention the extremely majestic immortal mountains in the distance, not to mention the boundless surging Milky Way near the immortal mountains, not to mention the heavenly maidens washing themselves and bathing by the Milky Way, just the leisurely flying immortal birds and immortal beasts in front of Xiaohua made him feel as if there was too much for his eyes to take in. Damn it, is this really the original appearance of the immortal land? Xiaohua's gaze couldn't help but glance towards the bank of the heavenly river. Kacha, a crisp sound rang out. In the sky above the celestial realm, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the clouds of the 9th heaven. It rapidly struck towards Xiaohua's forehead. No way. I'm just looking, and I haven't even seen. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He was just about to use the bright thunder escape, but when he thought about how Jinjia and the others were in the thunder arena and could see his every move, his figure unconsciously became sluggish. At this time, if he took out a flight talisman, it would probably be too late. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He clapped his hands and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out. However, just as the cloud-suppressing seal flew into the air, before Xiaohua could activate his spiritual power, that bolt of lightning had already struck Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua sighed in his heart and hurriedly dodged. A loud sound rang out as the lightning struck his shoulder. Just as Xiaohua was about to be injured, a tricolored brilliance flashed from the spot where the lightning struck, blocking the lightning out of thin air. The lightning immediately disappeared into thin air. Xiaohua was very familiar with this tricolored brilliance. It was the defensive magic treasure that Qian Diheng wore during his experiential learning. That's right, this protective treasure was chosen by Qian Diheng for Xiaohua. It was the treasure that he had always used to protect his life. At this moment, Xiaohua was wearing this treasure. No wonder Qian Diheng had been plotting how Yan Xiefeng would die. Outside the illusory realm, Jinjia's face was so gloomy that water could be squeezed out of it. He snuck a glance at Qian Tian and said intentionally or unintentionally, "Senior brother Qian. This treasure, seems to be what senior brother used when he was young." Isn't that right? I was wondering why it looked so familiar. This little brat, I only said that I would give a treasure to Xiaohua and he actually took it out. What a prodigal thing. Qian Tian scolded. However, he immediately asked, however, this treasure of Yan Xiefeng seems to be what junior brother used in the past. I had already given this treasure to my disciple. I'm afraid that Wei Xing gave it to Xiefeng. Jinjia said embarrassedly. Sigh, just a qi refining disciple and he has to use a treasure. It's not good for the meridians. Qian Tian said sincerely. Jinjia's lungs were about to explode from anger. He naturally knew that this was his disciple's arrangement. Moreover, Xin Weixing also knew that Xiaohua had the cloud-suppressing seal. However, none of them expected that Qian Diheng would give Xiaohua a protective treasure. Although protective treasures also needed magic power, they used less magic power than attacking treasures. With this treasure, Xiaohua was at least in an undefeatable position. Jinjia wanted to say something, but, before entering the Thunder Arena, Jinjia had already given this protective magic weapon to Xiaohua. Xiaohua had taken advantage of the time when he went to the eastern ridge to retrieve the Great Wisdom Sword to refine it for himself. What could he say? Damn it, no wonder Qian Diheng wanted to follow. Xin Jia couldn't help but scold. And within the illusion, Xiaohua, who was struck by a bolt of lightning, quickly fell down several feet. Only then did he stabilize himself. When he raised his head, Yan Xifeng's figure appeared high up in the sky. Humph, Xiaohua sneered. He slapped his hand and took out a flying talisman from the space. He slapped it on his body and then urged his magic power to fly high up in the sky. Moreover, while flying, he held the cloud-suppressing seal in his hand. When the two people approached, Yan Xifeng's hand had already changed into a gourd-shaped magic treasure. Looking at Xiaohua's figure flying over, his face was abnormally heavy. Needless to say, his sneak attack just now was precisely because of Jin Weixing's instructions. Relying on some of his experience with the Thunder Plains illusory realm, he hid in the shadows and then used his sect's secret technique to activate his magic weapon, wanting to give Xiaohua a fatal blow. But in the end, Yan Xifeng consumed a lot of magic power. For a short period of time, he temporarily couldn't control his magic treasure. He could only use his magic treasure, the Thunder Spirit Gourd, to fight the enemy. As for the Thunder Spirit Gourd, it definitely couldn't break Xiaohua's protective treasure. But what else could he do? If he didn't want to sit and wait for death, he could only compete with Xiaohua's magic power and see whose magic power would be consumed first. This was obviously the sorrow of an aura-refining disciple, and it was also something he could think of in advance. But what about Xiaohua? Xiaohua didn't know about his challenge. Thinking of this, Yan Xifeng's mouth hung a cold smile. Chapter 1831. Therefore, when Yan Xifeng flew down, he had already taken a pill to recover his true energy and quietly waited for his spiritual power to recover. Thinking of this, the corner of Yan Xifeng's mouth slightly rose. Yes, for this battle, Jin Weixing gave him a lot of pills. Even though Xiaohua went to the eastern ridge, after all, he wasn't with Zhang Wuji. In terms of pills, he definitely couldn't compare to Yan Xifeng. Xiaohua and the others approached. With a wave of his hand, the cloud-suppressing seal let out a wang-wang sound. In midair, it absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and gradually enlarged. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth around the cloud-suppressing seal also began to condense into a tiny ribbon shape. Go, Xiaohua's face gradually turned pale, seemingly due to the consumption of his spiritual power. Seeing the cloud-suppressing seal slowly pressing down on him, Yan Xifeng couldn't help but feel a burst of palpitations in his heart. That kind of feeling seemed to be an invisible rope firmly binding him. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't break free. Yan Xifeng's forehead was instantly covered in sweat. This was the first time he encountered this kind of situation. Pooh! Yan Xifeng suddenly bit the tip of his tongue. A stream of blood essence spurted out, startling him for a moment. Quick! Taking advantage of this precious moment, Yan Xifeng already formed a seal on the Thunder Spirit Gourd in his hand. From within the gourd, a purple brilliance sprayed out. Within the brilliance, there were dozens of flashing lightning bolts. They were like exquisite little dragons that danced and rushed towards the cloud-suppressing seal. As the lightning bolts danced, the purple brilliance converged into the lightning bolts. Those lightning bolts absorbed the abundant lightning energy of the thunder arena and rapidly expanded. When they flew close to the cloud-suppressing seal, they had already become lightning bolts as thick as an arm. Ka-cha-cha, ka-cha-cha, a dozen sounds in a row. Those lightning bolts hit the bottom of the cloud-suppressing seal, smashing some of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into tiny ribbons. However, these lightning bolts only slightly prevented the cloud-suppressing seal from falling. The remaining lightning bolts gradually shrank under the might of the cloud-suppressing seal, and were even annihilated. This is the difference between a magic treasure and a magic tool. Fall. Not far away, Xiaohua's face showed joy. Urging the spiritual power in his hand, the cloud-suppressing seal sped up and smashed towards Yan Xiefeng's forehead. Go! Yan Xiefeng had long expected this. Taking advantage of the fact that the cloud-suppressing seal's infinite karma power was slightly weak, he tried his best to activate the flight talisman to escape. Unfortunately, how could a 12th-layer Qi refinement cultivator like him escape from the boundless power of karma? Even if Yan Xiefeng exerted all his strength, he only managed to fly a few feet. Paw! The cloud-suppressing seal landed on Yan Xiefeng's forehead. However, just as Xiaohua had expected, a layer of lightning also appeared on Yan Xiefeng's forehead. This lightning quickly covered Yan Xiefeng's entire body and firmly protected him. No matter how much the suppressing cloud seal flipped in the air, it could not land. Hee, senior brother Jin, you've made a lot of preparations. Sun Ming couldn't help but say in amusement. Both of them had magic treasures to protect themselves, so in the end, the only thing that mattered was their transcendence energy. Furthermore, they were both at the peak of the 12th layer of aura refining, so their transcendence energy, was there even a need to mention it? There was definitely not much difference between them. In Sun Ming's mind, the biggest possibility for these two people was already a tie. This old man also doesn't know. It's all thanks to Professor Wei Xing's methods. Xin Jia naturally pushed away all responsibility. However, just as Sun Ming was speaking, a strange change occurred again. Xiaohua's hand spread out, and like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, dozens of fireball talismans covered Yan Xiefeng's entire body. Only to hear a series of rumbling sounds, like the firecrackers of the mortal world during the new year, ringing non-stop. With great difficulty, it finally stopped. At the place where the flames were extinguished, Yan Xiefeng revealed an expression of having a card up his sleeve, and the lightning around his body did not decrease in the slightest. However, just as Yan Xiefeng once again struggled free from the might of the cloud-suppressing seal and had just flown a few feet away, Xiaohua once again waved his large hand, closely followed by a dozen or so fireball talismans pouncing over this. Sun Ming was somewhat speechless. This was almost a scoundrel's way of fighting. But thinking about it again, relying on the might of a magic weapon to trap the opponent, and then using yellow talismans to wear down the opponent's magic power, it was also an extremely normal train of thought. Others had just woken up, but Wu Qi, Zhuo Minghui, Xiang Yang, and the others had already thought of it when Xiaohua threw out the first batch of fireball talismans. Didn't Xiaohua use this move to deal with Xiang Yang that day? Even the early-stage foundation establishment Xiang Yang was somewhat exhausted. Could Yan Xiefeng do it? Of course, this depended on how long Yan Xiefeng's magic power could support the magic weapon protecting his body, and also how many fireball talismans Xiaohua had. But how many fireball talismans did Xiaohua have? No one seemed to know that every time Yan Xiefeng relied on this protective magic treasure to block the fireballs that came crashing down on his head and face, and then barely managed to move a few feet, Xiaohua would immediately wave his hand in an extremely confident manner, and another dozen or even dozens of fireball talismans would surround Yan Xiefeng. This cycle repeated over and over again until everyone was tired of watching, but Xiaohua's movements were still as joyful as ever. Obviously, this most basic attack method, the most clumsy fireball talisman, was the most effective way to consume magic power. Every time, the light protecting Yan Xiefeng's body would admittedly decrease by a small amount, but it was still decreasing. Moreover, following the consumption of his magic power, the light would decrease even more. After a long time, the lightning finally weakened, just when Sun Shu and the others were extremely puzzled, but sometimes they were somewhat happy. The cloud-suppressing seal that Xiaohua relied on to suppress Yan Xifeng's movements suddenly lost its sound, and silently fell from the air. Obviously, it was because Xiaohua's magic power was insufficient. Oh no! Xiangyang was the first to cry out in alarm. Junior Martial Brother Zhao's true qi is exhausted. Right now, Xiaohua's cultivation was at the 12th layer of qi refining, not much different from Yan Xifeng. Yan Xifeng only used his magic power to defend himself, so the consumption was naturally smaller. How could Xiaohua last? The cloud-suppressing seal falling at this time was already very rare and commendable. However, Xiaohua didn't seem to be flustered at all. At the same time, he withdrew the cloud-suppressing seal with one hand, and at the same time, threw out a fireball talisman with the other hand, and then took out a few medicinal pills to consume. Rumble. A series of loud sounds rang out, but Yan Xifeng's heart was already at ease inside the fireball. Just now, the cloud-suppressing seal above his head made him unable to retaliate at all. He had persevered for a long time just for this moment. I want to see how long your magic power can last. An evil grin gradually appeared on Yan Xifeng's face. Half of the true qi in his meridians was activated. While maintaining the protective magic treasure, he had already accumulated enough strength to activate his magic power. Once the fireball was about to explode, he would rush out and give Xiaohua a head-on blow. Seeing that the surrounding fire was decreasing, Yan Xifeng let out a long whistle, and his figure suddenly flew up. With a wave of his hand, the thunder spirit gourd that was not suppressed by the cloud-suppressing seal until now flew up, and the gourd's mouth once again burst out with a purple brilliance. However, just when Yan Xifeng was about to cast a spell on the thunder spirit gourd, he suddenly felt a black shadow streaking across his eyes. In the blink of an eye, the shadow had already flown to a distance of about 1 zhang in front of him. This guy is really so fast. Yan Xifeng's heart was slightly startled, and he secretly pondered, as expected by Master, he is really faster than me by 30%. He's so close, could it be, that he still has some trump card? Without waiting for Yan Xifeng to finish thinking, he saw Xiaohua wave his hand, and a pitch-black spear point appeared in his hand. Xiaohua's face suddenly turned blood-red, and his figure sped up again. With a "hu" sound, the spear point quickly pierced Yan Xifeng's body defense. Demonic weapon. Yan Xifeng's eyes narrowed. No wonder Master said that Xiaohua's strength is huge, and that he might have some trump card. Using his outer space object as a stake, one can try to increase his cultivation, and two can weaken his strength. It really is useful. I'm afraid this demonic weapon is his final trump card. With a "pa" sound, a huge force hit Yan Xifeng's chest. Although Yan Xifeng's figure retreated a lot, the light protecting his body flickered, and his body didn't suffer any damage. Ha ha ha. Yan Xifeng, who thought he already figured out Xiaohua's details, laughed wildly a few times, and said sternly, "You think only you have fireball talismans?" While speaking, he waved his hand, and the same large amount of fireball talismans sprinkled out. Although the quality was far inferior to Xiaohua's fireball talismans, the exploding fireballs also blocked Xiaohua inside. Xiaohua's magic power seemed to be insufficient, and when he was flying just now, he also seemed to have urged a secret technique. At this time, his figure was somewhat clumsy, and he actually couldn't dodge. One fireball after another exploded near his body. Of course, the light protecting his body overflowed and easily blocked these fireballs. Quick, hearing Yan Xifeng's incantation in his ears, he saw that inside the thunder spirit gourd, another 4 or 5 lightning bolts grew in the wind, and like small dragons, pounced towards Xiaohua. In a hurry, Xiaohua waved his hand, and the spirit crow fire net rushed into the sky. Under the urging of his magic power, more than 10 fire crows flew out from the fire net, and faced the lightning bolts with a whistle. Ka-cha-cha, several thunderous sounds rang out, and the lightning bolts and fire crows were annihilated at the same time. The power of these two artifacts was exactly the same. Fight. Xiaohua was already full of fighting experience. Early on, at the same time that he shot out the spirit crow fire net, his figure once again flew. Taking advantage of the fact that Yan Xifeng hadn't taken out his yellow talisman, he once again flew to his side. With an angry roar, he swung the tip of the demonic spear in his hand, and like a little chick pecking at rice, he consecutively stabbed towards Yan Xifeng's waist more than 10 times. With every stab, Yan Xifeng would fly back a foot, and Xiaohua would follow like a shadow, sticking close to his body, and stab a second time. Admittedly, the demonic spear tip was unable to pierce through the defense, but the strength in Xiaohua's hand could not be faked. The defensive brilliance could not completely block it, and more than 10 strikes landed on Yan Xifeng's body that had not been tempered in the slightest. It was already painful to the point that his face turned deathly pale. And at the same time that he was in pain, his magic power was already insufficient. The thunder spirit gourd stopped in the air, and no more lightning bolts flew out. Looking at Xiaohua again, he was incomparably refreshed. At the same time that he stabbed Yan Xifeng, he didn't forget to point his finger. The spirit crow fire net covered the thunder spirit gourd, and that purple brilliance could no longer leak out. Chapter 1832. Ouch! Yan Xifeng endured the pain and clapped his hands again. A large amount of yellow talismans flew out, wanting to force Xiaohua to retreat. Who would have thought that Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness? He stretched out his left hand, grabbing Yan Xifeng's neck as if he was catching a fish. Yan Xifeng was shocked. He swung his hand upwards, wanting to block, but Xiaohua's arm seemed to be soft. It swayed in front of his eyes and easily dodged. Yan Xifeng simply didn't have time to react. With a paw sound, Xiaohua grabbed Yan Xifeng's neck. Naturally, Yan Xifeng's protective light rippled and blocked Xiaohua's hand. But immediately after, Xiaohua's action made the onlookers dumbstruck. Paw paw paw. Xiaohua actually raised his fist and punched Yan Xifeng's neck. At the same time, he used his other hand to stab Yan Xifeng's waist with the tip of the demonic spear. What kind of fighting method is this? Even Gantian, an experienced and knowledgeable late Golden Core cultivator, was stunned. He really couldn't understand what was going on. Reporting to Senior Master Qian. Helplessly, his face was a little red. He said shyly, Junior's disciple, was originally a loose cultivator. His actions seemed to be similar to the martial techniques of the secular world. Martial techniques. Oh, I have some impression. Gantian came to a realization, it's similar to the body cultivators of the cultivation world, right? Maybe, disciple isn't too sure. Helplessly shrunk his neck. He felt ashamed that Xiaohua actually used the tricks of the secular world. Yan Xifeng was probably dizzy from Xiaohua's beating. He threw out large amounts of yellow talismans, but he didn't know where he threw them. He clearly felt that Xiaohua was on the left, but after he threw them out, Xiaohua ran to the right. When he hit the right again, Xiaohua appeared above him. In short, Xiaohua was like a cat playing with a mouse, doing whatever he wanted around Yan Xifeng. Paw! A crisp sound rang out. This sound was extremely soft, but in Yan Xifeng's ears, it was extremely ear-piercing. It was like a jade pillar suddenly collapsing. His heart instantly turned cold. This was the sound of Yan Xifeng's protective magical treasure being broken. This is bad. Yan Xifeng was so shocked that he decided to use the secret method taught by Professor Zhen Weixing regardless of anything else. However, Just as he activated the secret technique, a powerful hand gripped his neck. The strength that was as hard as rock immediately made him feel suffocated. Yan Xiefeng had not experienced this feeling for a long time, but once this feeling appeared, he did not hesitate. Xiaohua only needed to move slightly, and his neck would be easily broken. Just like a weak little chick. Senior brother Xiao, please spare my life. Fear came as expected, not allowing Yan Xiefeng the slightest hesitation. Humph. Jin Jie's face instantly turned pale. He looked at Yan Xiefeng, who was struggling with all his strength but was unable to break free. He snorted coldly and turned to leave. Junior brother Jin. Gantian's voice spread over. It was really cold but also really excited. I haven't made my decision and junior brother is leaving. Are you not going to give senior brother face? Not at all. I just want to ask Wei Xing how he teaches his disciples. Jin Jia smiled apologetically. Their cultivation is the same, and their spiritual power is about the same. How could he be defeated by such shameless methods? This kind of disciple, if he dies, then he dies. Is there a need for senior brother Qian to make a decision? Take a look. Xiaohua didn't kill him. Gantian's brows rose, indicating for Jinjia to return. Jinjia didn't dare to disobey. He looked at Sun Ming who couldn't help but laugh. He was abnormally embarrassed and angry, but his body still resolutely turned back. At this moment, Xiaohua's voice spread over. Zhen. Senior Uncle Zhen. Does it count as my win? That voice was both timid and excited, like, this victory was not easy to come by. Senior Uncle Qian, what do you think? With Gantian here, Shen Hongwen naturally didn't dare to make a decision. Damn, do you still need me to make a decision? Gantian scolded with a smile. Xiaohua only needed to use strength and Yan Xiefeng's neck would be broken like a duck. No matter what, Xiaohua won. Yes, disciple understands. Shen Hongwen hurriedly said. Following which, Shen Hongwen waved his hand, and a red light pillar appeared from the illusion. He said, Xiaohua, you have already won. You just need to bring Yan Xiefeng into the light pillar. Yes, disciple understands. Xiaohua was afraid of changes and didn't dare to be careless. He still carried Yan Xiefeng like he was carrying a real duck. He pointed his finger, and the spirit crow fire net brought the lightning spirit gourd back, stepping into the red light pillar. The light pillar flashed, and Xiaohua's figure disappeared from the illusion. The entire illusion returned to red and blue. Senior Uncle Qian, Senior Uncle Zhen, Senior Uncle Sun, please. Shen Hongwen said with a smile. Xiaohua's eyes darkened, and there was another teleportation pressure. An oval door appeared in front of him. Xiaohua understood that this was the life and death situation from before. When Xiaohua stepped out of the door, as expected, Qian Diheng and the others were already waiting by the side. Pudong, Xiaohua shook his hand, throwing Yan Xiefeng to the ground. Yan Xiefeng seemed to have no strength left, unable to stand up. The others didn't dare to say anything. Qian Diheng had already walked up and looked at Yan Xiefeng, saying weirdly, Junior brother Xiao, are you sure? He already went up the lightning field, and you still don't want his life. Why would I want junior brother Yan's life? Xiaohua was very calm, and he said righteously, junior brother Yan wanted to spar with me, and he didn't even think about going up the lightning field. Moreover, we are all disciples of Thunder Palace, and we don't have any grudges. Why do we have to fight to the death? Then he looked at Gantian and smiled. Moreover, Senior Uncle Qian still has a bet, and I really can't bring myself to die. It can't be. Qian Diheng was stunned. When did you become so kind? I have always been kind, it's just that you didn't notice. Xiaohua said with a smile. Because of him, 3 of Jinjie's personal disciples had already died in Thunder Ridge. If he killed Jin Weixing's disciple in front of him, would he still want to cultivate in Thunder-controlling sect? Wouldn't he attract the attention of Thunder Ridge? What if he attracted the attention of the Heavenly Thunder Palace or other teachers? Xiaohua couldn't be bothered to do such a thing that harms others without benefiting himself. Great! Gantian smiled, passing the Great Wisdom Sword and the jade to Xiaohua. I didn't expect that you would let Yan Xifeng go. Not bad, such a magnanimous cultivator with such methods, comparable to your senior brother. Ha ha ha, so what if he doesn't build his foundation? After saying those words that didn't know how to praise, Gantian didn't say anything more, turning around and leaving. Qian Dihink scratched his head, giving Xiaohua a look, and he hurriedly followed. Looking at the figures of the two leaving, their footsteps were exactly the same. Chapter 1833. Scoff. Once Gantian's body disappeared, Jinjie scoffed coldly. His eyes circled Xiaohua's body before looking at helplessness. Although his gaze was like a knife, he was helpless. He waved his sleeves and left. Jin Weixing naturally followed. Yan Xifeng's face was ashen white as he followed behind. Ha ha ha, Sun Ming cupped his hands and said, "Nephew helpless, what a good disciple you took in." Even senior brother Gantian praised him. Congratulations. Helpless' face turned red as he returned the greeting. I don't dare, I made Senior Master Sun laugh. These are all methods that can't be seen by others, it's an unfair win. An unfair win. A thoughtful smile appeared on Sun Chu's face, and he didn't say anything else. He nodded slightly at Xiaohua, then led Sun Chu and Xue Xue away. Xue Xue's gaze was filled with reluctance, but she still walked further and further away. Zhenemo and the others also said a few words to Helpless and Zhuo Minghui before bringing their disciples away. Only the 10,000 Thunder Valley disciples were left in front of the Life and Death Temple. Xiaohua held the Great Wisdom Sword in one hand and the jade he won in the other. He looked at Helpless and smiled, "Master, I won. Junior brother Xiao is indeed amazing, you are as fierce as before." Xiang Yang saw that Helpless' expression wasn't right and immediately said, "Even if I faced junior brother Xiao now, I would have my hands tied." Scoff. Helpless was originally gloomy. At this moment, he rolled his eyes, sweeping a glance at Xiang Yang and then at Xiaohua. He sneered and said, "I originally thought that my myriad Thunder Valley's first disciple would reach foundation establishment in 50 years. Who would have thought that the second disciple might take even longer?" "Master." Xiaohua felt wronged and said softly. Helpless' gaze was filled with disappointment as he stared at Xiaohua. "You said you won." "Yes, you did win. However, don't you think that you won with an unfair win?" "Ah." Xiaohua was stunned and blurted out, "What? Master, you actually saw through it." "He, not only me, but Senior Master Zhen, Senior Master Sun, and Senior Master Qian, which one of them didn't see through it? Didn't you hear what Senior Master Qian said? Such methods, so what if you are energy refinement? Do you know how I felt when I heard those words? You've made me lose all face." Looking helplessly at Xiaohua's enlightened face, he said angrily, "You have cultivated for so many years. Have you cultivated your cultivation to become a dog? Don't you know how to use some magic? Didn't they know how to accumulate more magic power and use magic treasures? Even if the transcendent artifact is not good enough, can't you use more transcendent artifacts? The magic tool your mistress gave you. Are you planning to use it to give birth to a child? I spent a large sum of spirit stones to refine these magic tools for you, and you let them sleep. Could it be that these Dharma artifacts became Dharma treasures when they fell asleep? It's fine if you use the Fireball Talisman. After all, it's still a cultivator's technique. But, you actually used a magic weapon and relied on your strength to win. Those were the methods that cultivators disdained. They were the brainless methods of the people of the devil world. You actually have the nerve to use it. And, even if you use a demonic weapon, that's fine. It's still considered a demonic technique. You can just borrow it and treat it as a body cultivator. I won't say anything. You actually disregarded your status as a cultivator and used the methods of a mortal martial artist. What do you want me to say about you? I originally thought that you would learn from your mistakes, but looking at your fighting methods, which one of them didn't rely on external objects? With such insignificant methods, even if you won, so what? What's the use of that so-called jade amulet? Can you build your foundation? Can you truly become a cultivator? A few years ago, you used this method to force your eldest senior brother to not dare to casually fight back. But, did he really not dare to fight back? That was because he was afraid of hurting you. And today, a few years later, you are still using the same method. You may have won against Yan Xifeng, but what about your eldest senior brother? He doesn't have as much strength as you, but would he be afraid of you? Why? Can't you think about it? Because he's already at the middle stage of foundation establishment. His cultivation has already improved. He can casually kill you with just a wave of his hand. Look at your senior brother Cui. Although he entered the sect later than you, he's already at foundation establishment. Do you think that your method can still defeat him? Actually, there's no need to think about it. Just by looking at this old man's heels, I can tell that you're just like last time when you forced Xiang Yang to use the most basic of techniques to kill you. What's the use of your magic treasures? Then, he sized up Xiaohua again and sneered, look at my myriad Thunder Valley's disciple. He has an extraterrestrial divine object in his left hand and an ancient divine spell in his right hand. Anyone who sees it will feel that it's really impressive. Unfortunately, even if you have another 10 or 20 ancient divine spells, can you cultivate them? If you don't build your foundation, you'll never be a true cultivator. After he finished speaking, he helplessly flung his sleeves, turned around and left. His figure quickly disappeared outside the side hole. This. Xiaohua was helplessly reprimanded, and his face turned ashen. He never thought that after defeating Swallow Thunder Ridge's provocation, he would actually end up like this. Xiaohua. Your master is also doing this for your own good. Zhuo Minghui clearly wanted to say something, but when she saw Xiaohua's expression, she sighed and also walked away. Yan Qinglian saw that her master's wife had left, and looked at Xiang Yang who wanted to comfort Xiaohua. She pulled Xiang Yang and said in a low voice, Junior brother Xiao, I won't say anything. You won anyway, so don't think too much. Go back to the Eastern Ridges herb garden and rest for a while. When Master's anger subsides, I'll let your senior brother send a message to you. Xiang Yang also nodded, patted Xiaohua's shoulder, and left with Yan Qinglian. Only Cui Hongshan was left. With a smile on his face, he said, Many thanks, junior brother Xiao. Today is a good day for me to open the sect. You also gave me such a victory, and it's also a gift that I like very much. However, Master is right. If you don't build your foundation, everything is useless. You should stop trying to comprehend those messy things and think more about how to build your foundation. You also know about my cave, so if you have time, there's no harm in coming to my cave. I definitely won't keep it to myself. I hope that my myriad Thunder Valley won't only have 1,000 years of chi refinement, but 100 years of foundation establishment. Ha ha ha. Looking at Cui Hongshan's appearance, Xiaohua's face faintly smiled, and he also said, what's this gift? If Xin Jia and the others didn't come, I's gift to you, tsk. Hearing this, Cui Hongshan's expression slightly changed. He turned his head and said, Junior brother Xiao, are you sure you'll give that thing to me? What do you think? Xiao Hua said with a smile. How is that possible? Such a precious thing. Cui Hongshan shook his head, and then said in a low voice, I wonder what that thing is. I want to say, but, do you dare to listen? Xiao Hua said with great interest. Cui Hongshan thought of his oath, and his expression unconsciously changed. He clenched his teeth, and walked out of the side hall in a flustered and exasperated manner. After waiting for everyone to leave, Xiao Hua looked around. In front of the Temple of Life and Death, apart from a few disciples on duty, there was no one else. He also laughed at himself and walked away, laughing as he walked. Today is really interesting, Xiao Hua thought as he flew back to the eastern mountain range. However, when he was still some distance away from the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden, suddenly, the divine senses of two late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators swept over. Xiao Hua immediately slowed down his flying speed, and when those two divine senses discovered Xiao Hua, they immediately locked onto him. Damn it, it can't be Zhenjia's backup, right? Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. His figure simply stopped in midair, and he coldly looked in the direction of the divine senses. Not long after, two late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, one fat and one thin, cautiously flew over. While looking at Xiao Hua, they also looked around. Which family's disciple are you? Why did you run to such a remote place? The fat cultivator asked absent-mindedly. Junior is a helpless disciple of Thunderclap Palace's 10,000 Thunder Valley. As Xiao Hua spoke, he pointed in the direction of the eastern mountain range and said, Junior's errand job is to guard the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden. I just went to 10,000 Thunder Valley to participate in Junior Brothers Foundation establishment ceremony, and now I'm rushing back to the eastern mountain range. The eastern mountain range's medicinal garden. Isn't that abandoned long ago? The thin cultivator said somewhat strangely. I'll let Senior know. The eastern mountain range's medicinal garden's spiritual energy is tyrannical, and it's precisely suitable for the growth of flame dawn grass. That's why I've always planted flame dawn grass. Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. Oh, so it's like that. The thin cultivator nodded, and glanced at the fat cultivator. The two of them exchanged glances, and asked again, in these 10 or so days, 20 or so days, have you been at the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden? Yes, Junior's duty is to guard the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden. If there are no special circumstances, I've always been at the eastern mountain range. Xiao Hua said honestly. And then did you see a late-stage Foundation establishment senior? Near the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden. Xiao Hua blinked and asked. And, naturally. The fat cultivator's eyes slightly brightened. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua shook his head and said, I'll let Senior know. When Junior received the Eastern Mountain Range's Medicinal Gardens formation token, the martial uncle who assigned the odd jobs had already warned me. There are dangerous and forbidden areas nearby, and it's really not peaceful. If there's nothing, do not walk out of the formation. Junior has always stayed inside the formation, and did not dare to come out. Oh, no late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators have come to your Eastern Mountain Range's medicinal garden. No. Apart from the Thunderclap Palace's senior brothers who come every year to get flame dawn grass, no other disciples have ever come. And, lead us to the Eastern Mountain Range's medicinal garden to take a look. Yes, please follow Junior. Xiao Hua respectfully led the two of them to the Eastern Mountain Range. When the formation was opened, the two of them looked at the neat medicinal garden and asked curiously, "What?" "The spiritual energy here is very abundant and also very normal. I'll let Senior know. Since last year, this place has gradually changed. Junior also does not know why." Xiaohua was still as honest as before. Junior intends to use a year's time to level this place and plant other spiritual herbs. Not bad. The thin cultivator's divine sense swept over, and he immediately knew. He nodded his head in praise. Chapter 1834. After that, Xiaohua invited the two cultivators into his immortal cave and offered them some spirit fruits as well as some spirit wine from Xiangyang's place. After tasting it, the two of them were very pleased and rested inside Xiaohua's immortal cave. The two of them no longer avoided Xiaohua and started chatting. "Say, Senior Brother Qian. Why would he be near the eastern ridge? What is he doing here?" "Senior Brother Qian." Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat and his ears perked up. "How would I know?" The secret technique of the two grandmasters shows that Senior Brother Qian was last seen near the eastern ridge. We can just search for him. But the problem is, the grandmasters can't give us a definite location. It's nearly 100 miles away. How can we search for him? So what if we don't search? Sigh, it's just a senior brother who hasn't condensed his core for 100 years. There's no need to be so nervous, right? The other lightning palaces might be able to, but the disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace can't. If we don't find any clues, it'll be hard to explain to the sect master. Do you think the sect master will care? He's just a Foundation establishment disciple. Senior brother, we'll search for him, but we mustn't put ourselves in danger. Suddenly, the fat cultivator seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed slightly and he whispered, "This place is so close to the Night Kite Valley. Do you think Senior Brother Qian will go there?" Night Kite. The thin cultivator's expression changed drastically. He looked around and it seemed that Night Kite was nearby. He whispered, "I don't think he'll go there. Think about it, the Night Kite Valley is a forbidden area. Golden core cultivators usually don't go there. Why would he go there? Maybe the Night Kite Valley has a treasure that can help him condense his core. Maybe." The two cultivators were a little depressed. Night Kite. Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly. What's that? Or is it a forbidden area nearby? However, his heart was like a mirror. He only brought his ears with him and poured wine for the two cultivators from time to time without asking a single question. After waiting for an hour, the two cultivators left. Before they left, not only did they give Xiaohua a few medicinal pills, they also said, "If there's nothing else, try not to go out. The Eastern Ridges formation has always been closed." Fear naturally appeared on Xiaohua's face. He very respectfully thanked the two of them. Only when the two of them had flown far away did he seal the formation. He scratched his chin with his hand and said with a smile, "Could it be that Night Kite Valley was the previous forbidden area? Who cares? It's not like I'm going to provoke it. I'll just let it be the culprit that killed Senior Qianshi. However, I still have to take this opportunity to remove the formation that bastard set up. Sigh, it's not that I'm careless, it's just that the formation is too big, and I haven't had the time to deal with it. Of course, even if the two seniors discovered the formation, what does it have to do with me? This young master doesn't have an Earth Escape talisman, so it's impossible for me to escape underground. This young master doesn't know anything about what's underground." Following that, Xiaohua formed hand seals, and his entire figure disappeared underground. Sigh, that's right. How could the disappearance of a peak foundation establishment cultivator have anything to do with a peak chi refining cultivator? The difference is really too big. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. The Eastern Ridge's herb garden had undergone a complete transformation. Because the fire origin had been taken away by Xiaohua, the tyrannical and scorching fire attribute spirit qi in the Eastern Ridge had lost its source. Naturally, it had returned to its original calmness. Xiaohua also had a lot of puppets in his hands. When he sent them out, they had already leveled the herb garden and planted all the necessary spirit grasses. Presumably, in a few years, this place would become a real herb garden. At this time, Xiaohua was sitting cross-legged in the cave. He clapped his hand and took out a jade slip. After he immersed his divine sense into it, he closed his eyes and pondered. After a while, he withdrew his divine sense. Then, he took out another jade slip and looked at it carefully. He looked at it for a long time. Needless to say, that jade pendant was the one he had won from Yan Shuifeng at Swallow Thunder Ridge. However, when Xiaohua returned to the Eastern Ridge herb garden and carefully examined it, he discovered that there was indeed something recorded inside. However, the words recorded were far from what he could recognize. It looked somewhat similar to the Green Seal script, but there were also differences. At that time, Xiaohua's intuition told him that he had been tricked. However, Xiaohua didn't understand why Gantian Mountain recognized this jade slip. Until 10 days later, when Qian Dihing came to the Eastern Ridge herb garden and gave Xiaohua a jade slip, Xiaohua finally understood what was going on. It turned out that although this jade slip wasn't a true ancient divine item, the words recorded inside were extremely ancient. These words had long been lost tens of thousands of years ago. The number of cultivators who could understand these words could be counted with one's fingers. Of course, Jin Jie and Jin Weixing didn't recognize them. They only understood a few words in the jade slip. Gantian Mountain just happened to have records of these words. Although they didn't recognize all of them, they understood a little. Of course, they knew that there was some content in the jade slip. Of course, what was inside, would Gantian Mountain care? Moreover, this jade slip of Gantian Mountain was only copied and given to Xiaohua by Qian Dihing after he went back. Compared to the records in the jade slip, Xiaohua slowly explored the cultivation technique in the jade slip. He had a rough understanding of it. What Jin Weixing said was both right and wrong. This wasn't a fire-controlling technique, but a technique similar to Weeping Moon City's Luan family's Lingyu Zhuhua. As for the real name, Xiaohua didn't know. Because of the 4 words of the cultivation technique, the first 2 words couldn't be seen. Only the last 2 words, divine fire, could be seen. Moreover, the first half of the cultivation technique was severely damaged and couldn't be cultivated. Only the second half of the flame-controlling technique could be seen. Perhaps Jin Weixing judged that it was a flame-controlling technique from this. Thunder Ridge naturally had many such flame-controlling techniques. An incomplete ancient god technique. Maybe Thunder Ridge didn't lack it. Therefore, Jin Jie didn't hesitate to take this thing out. An ancient god technique was compatible with Xiaohua's heavenly treasure. After looking at it for a long time, Xiaohua showed a kind of understanding. He took out the jade slip of the Luan family's Lingyu Zhuhua and compared it carefully. As he compared, his face showed a happy expression. This Luan family's Lingyu Zhuhua seems to have been born out of this flame-controlling technique. Moreover, it's a lot lower level, only less than 10% of the flame-controlling technique in the jade slip. However, this 10% is completely connected. From this 10% of the Lingyu Zhuhua, I can faintly deduce the content of the flame-controlling technique. Although I can't completely comprehend it and can only understand 30%, it's still several times stronger than the Lingyu Zhuhua. I used the Ling Yu Zhu Hua to cultivate the flame seed of the Ling Yu Zhu Hua and then used the flame controlling technique in the jade slip to cultivate the spiritual fire. Moreover, just by looking at the incomplete flame controlling technique in the second half, I can see that the flame controlling technique in the first half is definitely not simple. Chapter 1835. Soon after, Xiaohua stored the jade strip, jade pendant and other items into his space. Faintly furrowing his eyebrows, he closed his eyes and began to comprehend. As time passed, his frown grew even tighter. This so-called primordial fire art was indeed cryptic and difficult to understand. The sun set and the moon rose. The sky was already dark and the eastern rich herb garden was completely shrouded in the darkness of night. Xiaohua closed his eyes to comprehend. His entire body was shrouded in the starlight that couldn't be seen by divine sense or the naked eye. The dragon transformation art within his body was still operating on its own. Currently, Xiaohua's meridians still had a lot of flames formed from fire essence flame crystals. It was enough for him to reach the final stage of the 18th layer of qi refining. Around midnight, the time when the yang energy subsided and the yin energy rose, outside the eastern ridge herb garden that hadn't moved for a long time, a palm-sized, bat-like spirit beast flashed out from the darkness. It came from a forbidden area near the eastern ridge herb garden. This spirit beast was also the one that Xiaohua's lightning escape had awakened. This spirit beast floated in the night sky, almost blending into the darkness. There was no trace of it at all. The moonlight sprinkled down like water, but it was also absorbed by the spirit beast's fur, only projecting its figure to the ground. This spirit beast flew extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had crossed the distance of several zhang. Not long after, it approached the eastern ridge herb garden's array. The spirit beast obviously knew about the magic array. Its entire body was leaning against the outside of the magic array. Its entire body was swaying like a wave. At the same time, a wave was emitted from the spirit beast's body and projected onto the magic array. Just as the spirit beast's body was swaying, a strange scene occurred. The pitch-black layer around the spirit beast's body actually gradually wrinkled and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the spirit beast had already entered the array from outside. After entering the array, the spirit beast was still familiar with the path and flew towards Xiaohua's cave dwelling. However, just as the spirit beast approached the cave dwelling, its body suddenly stopped and quietly floated in the air, not moving at all. At this moment, Xiaohua, who was in the cave, suddenly had a warning sign in his heart. He couldn't help but open his eyes. After looking around, he released his Buddhist awareness and looked around again and again. He didn't find anything unusual. In the end, Xiaohua even checked the fire array and the rabbit array that he had set up before closing his eyes to cultivate again. As for the spirit beast that stopped in midair, it was as if it didn't exist. After a while, it quietly flew into the cave without any movement. When it reached the rabbit spirit formation, the spirit beast stopped once more and moved in that strange manner. The rabbit spirit formation also didn't have any resistance, and the spirit beast smoothly broke through. Needless to say, the heavenly fire array was also easily entered. Who? Xiaohua suddenly woke up with a start and opened his eyes again. At this time, the spirit beast was already crawling on the ground. That palm-sized shadow was contrasted with the darkness of the night. Xiaohua simply couldn't see it. Huh? What's going on? Xiaohua became very uneasy and stopped cultivating. He directly stood up and checked the inside of the cave dwelling. Then, he walked out of the cave dwelling and looked around. He even went to the bottom of the cave dwelling to search for a while, but there was still nothing wrong. Strange. Xiaohua patted his forehead. He had always been very confident in his acuity, but even though he knew that there was something wrong today, he couldn't find a reason. "I'm afraid, the Heavenly Thunder Palace is looking for that Foundation Establishment cultivator." Xiaohua comforted himself, "Or maybe Swallow Thunder Ridge's Zhenjia is plotting against me." He put a few more yellow talismans on his body and continued to comprehend with his eyes focused on his nose and his nose focused on his heart. Time slowly passed. The entire cave dwelling didn't have any movement, it was terrifyingly quiet. But in the night, that palm-sized spirit beast approached Xiaohua from the ground bit by bit. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of spiritual energy, there wasn't the slightest movement. It seemed that Xiaohua, who was paranoid, didn't keep his eyes closed during this period of time, but his naked eye and divine sense could easily pass by this spirit beast. Very quickly, another 2 hours passed. Seeing the darkness before his eyes, even if he was a cultivator, it was time for him to relax his mind. Suddenly, without any warning, without the slightest sound, a black shadow reflected between Xiaohua's eyebrows. It was as abrupt as the shadow under the moonlight. Xiaohua, who was cultivating with his eyes closed, didn't feel it in the slightest. Although the starlight in the sky was currently wrapping around Xiaohua, it couldn't stop this spirit beast's strange movements. Following the strange swaying of the spirit beast, the light and shadow in front of Xiaohua's forehead slightly distorted. Looking in the direction of the spirit beast, this spirit beast was like a pitch-black membrane, an extremely thin membrane. In the center of that membrane, there was a round hole the size of a thumb. That round hole was full of wrinkles. As it trembled slightly, it emitted a mysterious fluctuation. And this fluctuation gave birth to a thin pitch-black silk-like object, which entered Xiaohua's forehead. This spirit beast's movements were like this, but Xiaohua didn't feel it in the slightest. He was still peacefully cultivating with his eyes closed. The spirit beast's black silk-like object easily penetrated Xiaohua's forehead. It was precisely the imprint of the Dharma eye between the Buddha's eyebrows. Soon after, it gradually penetrated deeper into Xiaohua's forehead, where no one had ever seen before. Right at this moment, Xiaohua's forehead suddenly moved. The spirit beast's black silk-like object immediately produced an unfathomable suction force. The black soul silk-like object that Xiaohua used to refine the soul-absorbing bell suddenly stretched out from the mysterious place the spirit beast was exploring. Moreover, it quickly intertwined with the spirit beast's black silk-like object. These soul silk-like objects were actually the same thing, and unknowingly mixed together. Moreover, these soul silk-like objects passed through the Dharma eye of the Buddha's relic. That Dharma eye was originally an imprint, but at this moment, as the number of soul silk-like objects increased, it actually gradually deepened. Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. He only felt that his entire body was swaying, and it was extremely comfortable. It was as if his entire body and mind were flying to paradise. However, this kind of comfort was extremely ethereal and extremely subtle. It was far from something that the physical body could comprehend. Just as Xiaohua was feeling this way, from the mysterious place where the soul's silk-like object penetrated, a tiny crack was gradually torn open under the trembling and suction force of the soul's silk-like object. That spirit beast's trembling became even more rapid, as if it wanted to tear that tiny crack open even more. However, right at this moment, the Dharma eye imprint that followed the trembling of the soul's silk-like object suddenly trembled violently. An extremely faint silver light flashed from the Dharma eye imprint. This silver light was extremely similar to Goldie's silver eyes, but sometimes it was much fainter. This silver light seemed to be slow, but it was actually very fast. In an instant, it shone on the spirit beast's oval-shaped hole. That hole's wrinkles seemed to have received an extremely strong stimulation, and rapidly squirmed. This squirming obviously destroyed the spirit beast's previous mysterious trembling. The black soul silk-like object was immediately cut off, and the tiny crack in the mysterious place of Xiao Hua's brain also closed at an extremely fast speed in an instant. At this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly opened his eyes and saw that strange pitch-black object in front of his forehead. Moreover, it was as if his head was filled with magma, and it was incomparably heavy. Soul-absorbing bell. Xiao Hua immediately felt the strange movement of the soul silk-like object, and he cried out in astonishment in his heart. However, a cry of alarm was just a cry of alarm. His body seemed to be separated from his soul and senses, and he couldn't control it in the slightest. Oh no! Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. His mind turned rapidly, and he thought of Goldie, who could devour people's souls. With great difficulty, he moved his mind and entered the space. Xiao Hua almost weakly called out, "Goldie, quickly save Mother." Mother Goldie saw Xiao Hua's lack of strength and immediately jumped up. It followed Xiao Hua's weak primordial spirit out of the space. Just as Goldie flew out of the space, the silver light on the Dharma eye of the Buddha Sarira disappeared, and that spirit beast's soul silk-like object trembled again. As soon as Goldie flew out of the space, the spirit beast immediately sensed it, as if it had seen its natural enemy. Its whole body suddenly bent, and like a wave, a layer of ripples appeared in the air, and then gradually disappeared. Goldie saw the spirit beast, and was extremely excited. It swayed its big tail, and flew over like the wind. The third eye on its forehead suddenly opened, and with a Z sound, a silver light flashed through the silver eye, penetrating into the ripples in the space. With a Z-la-la sound, like water falling into a pot of oil, the ripples boiled, and small bubbles appeared one after another. Within the bubbles, the spirit beast's extremely thin flesh membrane appeared again. Humph! Goldie snorted from its nose. A yellow light flashed, and a powerful suction force enveloped the spirit beast. Chi-ji, chi-ji. The spirit beast seemed to be struggling with all its might, but no matter how it struggled, it couldn't escape. Strands of black gas flew out from its oval hole, and entered Goldie's nose. In the end, a circular black gas was spat out from the hole. The spirit beast was completely motionless, and fell down from the sky. Mother, mother. Goldie was a bit speechless, and called out to Xiao Hua in a low voice. It flew to Xiao Hua's shoulder, tilted its head, and leaned against Xiao Hua's neck, and fell asleep. After a while, there was actually a faint sound of snoring. Looking at Xiao Hua again, his eyes seemed to be moving slightly, but his whole body was like a clay doll, and didn't move at all. This was even more powerful than a high-level confinement technique. But Xiao Hua himself was very clear. It wasn't that he didn't want to move, but that his thoughts were incomparably fast, as if he was passing through the boundless night sky, instantly crossing thousands of li, but he couldn't grasp his own body, and couldn't find the location of his own body. Suddenly, in this indescribable space, the same kind of vibration as before suddenly transmitted, and an incomparably powerful suction force came from far away. Xiao Hua felt as if he was suddenly transported thousands of li away, and arrived at a strange place. He saw an incomparably huge dark cloud covering the sky, and within the dark cloud, there was a thick pillar hanging down from the dark cloud, and connected to another place far away. The suction force came from the dark clouds, and the vibrations came from the thick, long strips. Chapter 1836. What is this thing? Xiao Hua was clearly shocked by this black cloud. The black cloud violently rolled, and a feeling of returning to its nest filled Xiao Hua. Just as Xiao Hua was thinking about it, the black pillar suddenly shook violently, and a thin crack appeared in the black cloud. An unparalleled suction force came from the crack in the black cloud, and Xiao Hua was sucked in without any explanation. Ah! Xiaohua screamed in fear, but when he saw the dusky area within the black clouds, his mind suddenly sank. An indescribable feeling was transmitted through the black pillar, and Xiaohua's mind once again fell into his own body. Incomparably sleepy, incomparably obscure, incomparably heavy, incomparably, a series of mortal feelings that Xiaohua had never experienced since he started cultivating flooded his mind. Xiaohua forced himself to open his eyelids, and saw Goldie lying on his shoulder. His heart relaxed, and just like Goldie, he fell into a sweet sleep. Xiaohua fell asleep, but his mind was still slowly changing. The spirit beast attacked Xiaohua's black soul thread through the Buddhasarira's Dharma Eye imprint, but because of the instinctive silver attack of the Dharma Eye imprint, it was cut off. Immediately after, Goldie came out and killed the spirit beast. The soul thread was still left in the Dharma Eye, and it connected the Dharma Eye with the soul thread's attack. What was even more amazing was that Xiaohua's soul thread was also sucked out by the spirit beast's soul thread. The two soul threads were now entangled together, and they were originally the same thing. One had lost the control of the soul imprint, while the other had the soul imprint. The spirit beast's soul thread naturally fused with Xiaohua's soul thread, and this fusion process was completed naturally while Xiaohua was in a sweet sleep. Xiaohua's practice of the soul-absorbing bell was originally a beginner, and he was abnormally shaky. The easiest way to deal with a soul technique's attack was to counterattack. Under the spirit beast's attack, Xiaohua's soul thread was easily drawn out, and his mysterious soul was easily opened by the spirit beast. Fortunately, Xiaohua still had the Dharma Eye imprint, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. After the black thread fused, it gradually faded, and gradually entered the mysterious soul. Xiaohua slept sweetly for 9 days. Only on the morning of the 10th day did he wake up with the first ray of sunlight. After waking up, Xiaohua's spirit was abnormally full. He first saw the spirit beast's body on the ground. It didn't have the slightest bit of vitality. Then, he saw Goldie was still sleeping soundly. Only then did he feel completely relieved. He put Goldie into the space, then cast a spell on the spirit beast's body. With a point of his hand, the spirit beast's body flew into the air. Xiaohua flipped it around and looked at it for a long time, but he still couldn't see what it was. It seemed that there were no similar records in the Imperial Thunder Sect's ancient books. This thing. It can't be the night kite that those two Foundation establishment seniors were talking about a few days ago, right? Xiaohua suddenly thought, that's something that even core formation cultivators don't dare to provoke. How did it end up in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden? Furthermore, the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden spirit formation and the spirit formation I set up are all unable to block it? Perhaps the Qi refining disciples who died in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden were also killed by this thing. No wonder that Foundation establishment cultivator didn't admit that he was the one who killed them. I thought he was just quibbling. Alas, fortunately, I still have Goldie. Fortunately, I still have the Dharma Eye imprint. Xiaohua was still somewhat shaken. He put the spirit beast's body into the space. When he examined the Dharma Eye imprint on the Buddhasarira, he shockingly discovered that the imprint had already taken shape. Presumably, the Dharma Eye imprint had been stimulated by the spirit beast's instinctive silver light. It's a daunting experience without any danger. There are even some gains. Xiaohua happily thought, however, what are those black clouds and those black pillars? I feel, they should be related to the soul. If those black pillars were enlarged, wouldn't they be similar to the soul strands? Damn it, those black clouds must be the mysterious place that hides the soul. The more Xiaohua thought about it, the more excited he became. He cultivated a few soul cultivation techniques, but he still couldn't find the so-called 9 heavens of spirit origin. If those black clouds were the location of the soul, then the 9 heavens of spirit origin must also be inside those black clouds. It seemed that Xiaohua still had some vague impressions of what was inside those black clouds. While thinking, Xiaohua took out the soul-absorbing bell. A few soul strands that were several times thicker than before were released from the space between his eyebrows. It was extremely easy for them to shake the soul-absorbing bell. Ha ha ha, it's true that riches come from dangerous places. It wasn't easy for this young master to cultivate these soul strands back then. Now, they've unexpectedly become so thick all of a sudden. Xiaohua said with a smile. But immediately, his brows wrinkled again. Huh? Why are these soul strands so thick? It's as if they were innate. Could it be that they were left behind by the spirit beast? Moreover, how did these soul strands fly out from the Dharma eye of the Buddha Sarira? While thinking, Xiaohua used his hand to rub his forehead again and muttered to himself in a low voice, "It seems that the spirit beast attacked. I have some impression, but it's also vague. Can't the Dharma eye of delirium break? I can use the Dharma eye to see. Oh, I have some impression. I seem to have seen it before." As Xiaohua's eyes lit up, he recalled the scene he saw before. That set of red bones, a body of blood that flickered with specks of golden silk, moving meridians, and 13,200 pitch-black specks. Maybe I can even see the location of the soul. Xiaohua thought and raised his left hand. He opened his Dharma eye and looked very expectantly. Unfortunately, what appeared before his eyes wasn't what he expected, nor was it what he thought in his heart. In the Dharma eye of delirium, what appeared before his eyes was truly a complete person. From head to toe, there wasn't a single spot that could be penetrated. Huh? That's strange. I clearly remember that I can penetrate inside. Xiaohua was somewhat dazed. Right at this time, the spell formation outside the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden moved again. Xiaohua hurriedly closed his Dharma eye. When he arrived beside the spell formation, he saw that there were actually 2 more cultivators. One of them was actually even at the core formation stage. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly opened the spell formation and bowed in greeting. "You're called Xiaohua." That Foundation Establishment cultivator glanced at Xiaohua and asked. "Correct, it's this junior." "I wonder if senior?" Xiaohua asked respectfully. "This old man is a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. You can call me Martial Uncle Qian for the time being." That Foundation Establishment cultivator was clearly more amiable towards juniors. "Did 2 Foundation Establishment seniors come to your medicine garden a few days ago?" "Good, Martial Uncle Qian knows." There indeed were. Xiaohua suddenly understood and said with a smile, however, the 2 seniors only rested at Junior's place for a while and immediately left. They also didn't leave behind their names. Junior doesn't know whether or not they were the people Martial Uncle is looking for. Did they say anything? Chapter 1837. Xiaohua thought for a while and nodded. "The 2 seniors only told me to be careful of the door and not to go out. However, from what they said, it seems like they are looking for someone." "All right, please step aside." Martial Uncle Qian nodded. Xiaohua quickly stepped aside. "Martial Uncle, please." Martial Uncle Qian said respectfully to the Golden Core cultivator. The Golden Core cultivator did not pay attention to Xiaohua at all. His eyes were wandering around. Xiaohua was not afraid. Last time, he had spent a lot of effort to destroy the underground formation of the Eastern Ridge. Even if he was discovered, he could say that he did not know. However, he did not think that these 2 people would discover anything. As expected, once they entered the formation, the Golden Core Cultivator and Foundation Establishment Cultivator released their divine senses and searched the entire eastern ridge. The Foundation Establishment Cultivator even used the 5 elements escape technique to investigate the underground of the eastern ridge. When the Foundation Establishment Cultivator came out, he transmitted a few words to the Golden Core Cultivator. The Golden Core Cultivator also entered the underground. When the two of them came out, it was already after a meal. Their expressions were normal. Xiaohua could not see what they discovered. However, since they did not attack him, presumably, even if they discovered something, it had nothing to do with Xiaohua, right? Seniors, Junior has some spiritual fruits and spiritual tea. Xiaohua stood in front of the Eastern Ridge Immortals Cave and waited for the two to come closer. He hurriedly tried to curry favor with them. No need, Xiaohua. You don't have to do anything. I will leave after a while. Martial Uncle Qian said with a smile. Then, he turned to the Golden Core Cultivator and said, Martial Uncle, there is nothing strange about this Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. If we really want to investigate, I am afraid we will have to use that thing. The Golden Core Cultivator frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about something. After a long while, he nodded and said in a hoarse voice, This is the only place within a few hundred miles around here. I don't even know how to attack the other places. With I's cultivation, I can only use that thing 3 times. This place is the most suitable place. But, Uncle Master, this seems to be the most unlikely place, right? The Foundation Establishment Cultivator laughed. The Golden Core Cultivator rolled his eyes. The most unlikely place is the most likely place. This place used to be full of spiritual qi, but it suddenly became violent, making it impossible to cultivate. Now that it has returned to its original state, there must be something wrong. Perhaps Qian Yuhua died because of this. Haha, then I'll have to ask Martial Uncle to give it a try. The Foundation Establishment Cultivator obviously didn't believe this and cupped his hands in greeting. The Golden Core Cultivator snorted and slapped his hand, taking out a palm-sized magic treasure from his storage pouch. Xiaohua's curious gaze swept over and he immediately cried out in astonishment in his heart, This. Why is this magic treasure so similar to that ferocious spirit beast? Sure enough, the edges of the palm-sized magical treasure were extremely thin, forming ripples. The entire surface of the magical treasure was pitch black, and within the pitch black, there were some runes similar to green seal script faintly moving. When the light of the day shone on it, there was no reflection at all. Even Xiaohua's gaze showed signs of being attracted. Looking at the center of the magic treasure, there was also an oval mouth that was slightly uneven. As for what was inside, Xiaohua's eyes couldn't see clearly. The magic treasure flew into the air, and the Golden Core Cultivator sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. At the same time, his hands formed different seals one after another. When each seal hit the magic treasure trembled slightly. After dozens of seals, the magic treasure actually began to tremble rhythmically, similar to the spirit beast's trembling from before. Ouch! Between Xiaohua's eyebrows, the Dharma eye imprint on the Buddha Sarira trembled along with the trembling. Xiaohua couldn't help but frown slightly. The Foundation Establishment Cultivator turned to look at Xiaohua and smiled. This is a spirit treasure, how can you casually look at it? Turn your eyes away. Yes. Xiaohua quickly turned his gaze away, and the Foundation Establishment Cultivator also formed a seal towards Xiaohua. Immediately, the trembling sound disappeared. Damn it, a spirit treasure, I thought it was a magic treasure. Xiaohua's eyes revealed a trace of surprise, but then he was shocked again. This is bad. Are they going to use this spirit treasure to find that guy? Oh, that cultivator named Xian Yuhua's soul. Won't they be exposed all of a sudden? Immediately, the magic power in Xiaohua's body gradually gathered, but at this time, the Foundation establishment Marshal Uncle Qian turned his head and asked thoughtfully, Xiaohua, what are you doing? Let Marshal Uncle Qian know, this junior is a bit uncomfortable. Xiaohua said with a bitter smile and pointed at the spirit treasure. Oh, Marshal Uncle Qian didn't comment and said casually, this is a spirit treasure, you can't use magic power. This thing won't harm you, you just need to ignore it. Yes, this disciple understands. Xiaohua's heart trembled, and he quickly dispersed his magic power. This is a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator and a golden core cultivator. I can't fight against them, I can only act according to the situation. Xiaohua laughed bitterly in his heart. I killed 2 Foundation establishment cultivators from Swallow Thunder Ridge, but the Heavenly Thunder Palace searched the entire Eastern Ridge for a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. This spirit treasure. I'm afraid this young master will be exposed. This young master won't say anything even if you beat me to death, I don't believe. Xiaohua muttered in his heart. At first, he was unyielding, but the more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. A golden core cultivator had countless methods, not to mention the soul-searching technique, but this spirit treasure might be able to restore everything. How can I escape? Xiaohua instantly began to plan. When the golden core cultivator activated his spirit treasure, the vibrations of his spirit treasure matched the vibrations of the spirit beast's vibrations more and more. When all the spells were cast, the golden core cultivator slapped his forehead, as if he was using some kind of secret technique. His face instantly turned pale. Immediately after, the golden core cultivator opened his mouth, and a mouthful of essence energy sprayed onto the spirit treasure. With a swoosh sound, from the oval-shaped mouth of the spirit treasure, hundreds and thousands of black threads, visible to the naked eye, flew out. These black threads had already flown out, and immediately flew in all directions of the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden. The Foundation establishment cultivator's eyes lit up. He saw that the thousands of black threads were originally flying in all directions of the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden, but there were actually many that were flying in the direction of Xiaohua's abode, and they actually shrank together, rushing into the abode. This is your abode. The Foundation establishment cultivator's gaze was like a knife, sweeping across Xiaohua's face. It is. What could Xiaohua say? When this junior came, this abode already had one. For the sake of convenience, this junior directly lived inside. Follow this old man. The Foundation establishment cultivator said to let Xiaohua follow him, but he didn't move, and instead let Xiaohua walk in front. At this time, the golden core cultivator also stopped casting, and his gaze was very strange as he looked at Xiaohua, as if he didn't believe it. What do I do? What do I do? Xiaohua muttered in his heart. Needless to say, this mysterious spirit treasure had already discovered Qian Yuhua's soul. In other words, Qian Yuhua died in the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden. Damn it, what do you mean what do I do? Of course I have to run now. Xiaohua steeled his heart, don't tell me I have to wait for someone to search my soul. With that thought, Xiaohua's magic power surged, and he was about to activate the bright thunder escape. But at this time, Xiaohua's eyes suddenly lit up, and his magic power dissipated again. What are you doing? The Foundation establishment cultivator obviously noticed his abnormality, and he put his hand on his storage bag, and asked sternly. This junior is a bit scared. Xiaohua said pitifully, but thinking that senior is behind this junior doesn't dare to use any yellow talismans. Quickly go in, don't dawdle. The Foundation establishment cultivator berated. Yes. Xiaohua responded, but he still walked into the abode unhurriedly. However, Just as he stepped into the abode, there were several swoosh-swoosh sounds, and among the dozens of black threads, more than 10 of them actually flew out of the abode. The Foundation establishment cultivator was slightly taken aback, and he closely followed Xiaohua into the abode with vigilance. The inside of the abode was clean, and there wasn't a single black thread. Martial nephew Qian. Those soul threads should have passed through the abode and directly flew out of the cave. Outside the abode, the Golden Core cultivator's voice sounded. Oh, this junior understands. The Foundation establishment cultivator sized up Xiaohua's abode, and he used his divine sense to check inside and out, then he brought Xiaohua out. This senior was right. This senior killed Qian Yuhua outside the abode, so why did those black threads fly into the abode? Xiaohua sneered in his heart, if I hadn't thought of this, I'm afraid I would have already fled, right? But why did the dozens of black threads fly into the abode? Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly. Could it be because of that spirit beast? Of course. Xiaohua suddenly realized that the traces of Qian Yuhua's soul must have been left here, but didn't the spirit beast come that day? Wasn't the spirit beast killed by Little Yellow? Qian Yuhua's soul was either swallowed by the spirit beast or Little Yellow. At this time, the Heavenly Thunder Palace brought a soul treasure that could only be used 3 times by a Golden Core cultivator, so what could they find? Xiaohua's guess was indeed correct. When he came out of the cave, in the time it took to cook a meal, the thousands of black silks flew back and flashed back into the spirit treasure. Let's go. The Golden Core cultivator's face was pale. He waved his hand, and the soul treasure in the air flew into his hand and disappeared. And, Martial Uncle, please. The Foundation establishment cultivator nodded in response. When they were outside the formation, Xiaohua suddenly asked, Martial Uncle, Martial Ancestor, that soul treasure looks very strange. It's different from magic treasures, like a spirit beast. The Golden Core cultivator glanced at Xiaohua and chuckled, you have some insight. It was refined from the body of the spirit beast Yi Kite. Many thanks for Martial Ancestor's guidance. Xiaohua was startled and hurriedly bowed respectfully. You should also hurry up and cultivate. Although this Eastern Ridge Herb Garden has a formation, it's not too safe. Hurry up and build your foundation, then go to Myriad Thunder Valley to open the abode. The Golden Core cultivator clearly knew Xiaohua's background before coming and said with a smile. Chapter 1838. Upon hearing Foundation establishment, Xiaohua's face immediately became bitter. He smiled apologetically and said, if I could build my foundation, of course I wouldn't stay here for long. Although I don't know who seniors are looking for, it's obvious, sigh. The Golden Core cultivator and Foundation establishment cultivator didn't say anything else. After exiting the spell formation, they exchanged a few words with each other and flew towards the forbidden area where Yi Yuan was. Xiaohua's left hand, which he cupped his hands to send them off, slightly opened a slit. His silver eyes had just closed. That's strange. Xiaohua's expression was the same as usual. When he turned around and closed the spell formation, he was still pondering. In that Golden Core Senior's meridians, the amount of true essence flowing like water doesn't seem to be as much as the Foundation establishment seniors. However, in his lower dantian, there's a thumb-sized resplendent bowl. That must be the Golden Core. In this Foundation establishment cultivator's lower dantian, there's also some solidification. There are even some vortexes. I'm afraid he's also on the verge of condensing his Golden Core. But why can't I see their bodies, bones, and other things? Why can my physical body see it? Moreover, my bones and other parts of my body are blocked. In addition, one of these two seniors' meridians is the same. It's exactly the same as the meridians I tempered at the 12th layer of chi refinement. However, the second meridian is different. Presumably, the foundation establishment cultivators choose different mental cultivation methods, so the meridians they open are also different. Xiaohua flew towards the immortal's cave while thinking, I haven't seen a golden core cultivation method, but from what I saw with my delirium eyes, it should be to refine the true essence in the two meridians that have already been opened, condensing that true essence into a golden core. It shouldn't be to open a third meridian outside the second meridian. In other words, all cultivators only have two meridians. Isn't that a bit too little? After all, there are still a lot of meridians in the body. Xiaohua was a bit confused, but then he mocked himself, damn it, one meridian is already connected to the whole body. Two meridians complement each other, forming the power of yin and yang. It runs through the whole body, so what's the point of having so many meridians? Who else would be like me, who would cultivate an additional meridian for the sake of that sliver of memory? Even if you build your foundation and refine one more meridian, you'll have magic power, but your lifespan won't increase. It's not as profound as the magic power of a core condensation cultivator. Who would joke around with their life and refine one more meridian? This young master had just tempered one meridian during chi refinement and was scolded by master to the point that I was almost expelled from the sect. If any fool tempered another meridian during foundation establishment, wouldn't he be directly smacked to death by master? Qian Yuhua's death really annoyed the Qian Thunder Palace. Originally, they listened to the lecture in front of the practitioner of Jindan realm and went out to look after the alchemy furnace. But in the blink of an eye, the natal spiritual tablet was broken. There was no Lingli pill in the cave as Qian Yuhua said. When they asked the disciples in the cave, they didn't know where their master went. The Heavenly Thunder Palace used various methods to try to find out where Qian Yuhua had died, but in the end, everyone's eyes were focused on the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden's Yiquan Valley, which was not far from the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. After all, within the area that the Heavenly Thunder Palace's elders had circled out using a secret technique, only the Yiquan Valley had not been carefully searched. But, who dared to search the Yiquan Valley? For a disciple in the late stage of foundation establishment, would they lose a disciple in Jindan realm? Therefore, Xiaohua's heart should be at ease. Of course, Xiaohua didn't have time to think so much. He was full of energy and focused on refining the fire marrow flame crystal flame in his meridians. He wanted to accumulate genuine qi and finish practicing the last bit of the prairie fire cultivation method as soon as possible. He wanted to reach the peak of the 18th hurdle of Lianqi realm and reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. Damn it! Thinking that Cui Hongshan forced Xiaohua to call him senior fellow apprentice, Xiaohua wanted to smack this guy to death. Well, it was like smacking an annoying fly. However, when Xiaohua just entered the late stage of Lianqi realm, something happened again. Helplessness's voice-transmitting rune came. Helplessness's voice-transmitting rune didn't say anything, only indifferently telling Xiaohua to return to Myriad Thunder Valley. Just from the tone of the voice-transmitting rune, Xiaohua could tell how much helplessness didn't want to see him, but because of some reason, he had no choice but to see him. Of course, listen to the last sentence of the voice-transmitting rune, you haven't reached foundation establishment yet? Although it was a question, it was definitely true. When Xiaohua received the voice-transmitting rune, to tell the truth, he also didn't want to go. First, he didn't want to see helplessness's expression. Second, he didn't want to see Cui Hongshan. When fellow apprentices met, they had to greet each other. But Cui Hongshan wanted to suppress Xiaohua, so he had to make Xiaohua call him senior fellow apprentice. But why would Xiaohua hang on to him? I'll go. Master summoning, how can I not go? Xiaohua smiled wryly. He put all the things he needed into a storage bag and also put the puppets working in the medicinal garden in the eastern ridge into his space. Only then did he open the magic formation and use an ordinary flight technique to fly towards Myriad Thunder Valley. During this time, although no more cultivators from the Heavenly Thunder Palace came to harass them, the disciples on duty from the Thunderous Thunder Palace did come to the Blazed Dawn Grass. When they saw the changes in the spiritual aura of the eastern ridge, that disciple also felt it was strange and reported the abnormalities to the Thunderous Thunder Palace's steward. The Thunderous Thunder Palace's steward also sent someone to take a look. When he saw that Xiaohua had actually leveled a lot of the medicinal garden and planted a lot of spiritual plants, he was also very happy. The Thunderous Thunder Palace actually rewarded some medicinal pills for aura-refining disciples. Moreover, the tone of the disciple who came to take a look revealed a hint of something that made Xiaohua extremely unhappy. Originally, the eastern ridge only had one type of blazed dawn grass, so Xiaohua was naturally able to take care of it all by himself. But now that the spiritual aura of the world was abundant, this place naturally had to be rebuilt into a medicinal garden like before. A medicinal garden with all kinds of spiritual plants, so Xiaohua definitely couldn't do it by himself. It was possible that the Thunderous Thunder Palace would also send some disciples over to take care of the garden together with Xiaohua. Of course, this was also what that disciple said. As for how many disciples they would send and who they would send, everything was unknown. At least, when Xiaohua left, there was still no news. Xiaohua cultivated while flying. He flew very slowly and only arrived in front of Helpless Immortal's cave after a long time. Without waiting for him to land, Helpless divine sense swept over him. Conveniently, that mocking voice sounded again. Sure enough, you still haven't built your foundation. Moreover, your flying speed is also very slow. You're really not advancing but retreating. Previously, when Xiangyang sent a message, you could definitely arrive in 4 hours. What about now? You're actually so slow. Alas, you don't want to see me. Xiaohua landed and quickly walked to the front of the Immortal's cave. He smiled apologetically and said, "Disciple, wasn't this disciple thinking about a difficult cultivation problem on the way here?" A difficult problem? What kind of difficult problem did you have this time? Why don't you tell me about it? Helpless sat on the seat of honor in the Immortal's cave with Zhuo Minghui at his side. He seemed to be very interested as he asked this question. How could Xiaohua have any difficult problems? He was just casually talking about it. He thought Helpless would listen to him and really didn't expect him to ask him. Chapter 1839. Disciple is thinking, if a foundation establishment cultivator can open and refine a second completely different meridian, then can a core formation cultivator also refine a third completely different meridian? Xiaohua said almost without thinking. Hearing Xiaohua's question, Helplessly was first stunned, then his face revealed ridicule. He turned to Zhuo Minghui and said, "Did you see? What did your husband say? Can he reach foundation establishment like this? He's only at the peak of the qi refinement realm, and he's already considering the matter of condensing his core. This kind of ambitious person is the first I've seen in my life." Zhuo Minghui's face also revealed a trace of worry, and she said with a smile, "Xiaohua, you aren't thinking about how to reach foundation establishment? Why are you thinking about so many irrelevant things?" Disciple occasionally thinks about it. Xiaohua said embarrassedly. Disciple's prairie fire cultivation technique and the fury flame technique master left for disciple to use in reaching foundation establishment are different. Therefore, disciple thought about it so much. This guy is currently thinking about the problems of us late-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Where would he have time to think about foundation establishment? Helplessly mocked. do you think I should answer or not? This is a problem I only thought of when I got the core formation cultivation technique. Zhuo Minghui sighed and said, husband, it's better to say it. If Xiaohua keeps thinking by himself, maybe he'll think of the wrong thing. If you want to say it, then say it. I'm not in the mood. Xiaohua, master's wife, also doesn't want to say too much to you. You only need to remember that all the cultivators in our Xiaoyu continent's cultivation world only cultivate 2 meridians. 1 main meridian, 1 auxiliary meridian, 1 yang meridian. They complement each other and bring out the best in each other. It's not like no one has ever tried cultivating 1 more meridian. However, not to mention cultivating 1 more meridian, even if you cultivate 10 more meridian, your magic power may increase, but your realm absolutely won't increase. There's nothing you don't know about foundation establishment. Foundation establishment's true essence is completely different from Qi refinement's true Qi, and its power is also different. Core formation and foundation establishment's true essence are also completely different. After core formation, the magic power is absolutely several times that of foundation establishment's true essence. Who would put in the effort to cultivate a 3rd meridian? Disciple understands. Xiaohua bowed and answered. Understand my ass. He scolded helplessly, if I had learned something, I wouldn't have let my imagination run wild and I wouldn't have walked the crooked path. He, master, are you angry again? A voice laughed as he walked in. Who else could it be but Cui Hongli? My ancestor once said that excessive qi harms the liver, which is the greatest enemy of cultivators like us. Although Master is now a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment, he can't ignore this. Although we cultivators don't temper our bodies are the proof that we can use to comprehend the great Tao. Cui Hongli said loudly as soon as he entered the room. Master understands. He smiled helplessly and said, with my cultivation and the cultivation of the 10,000 Thunder Valley, this bit of anger won't hurt me. Behind Cui Hongwen was another very gorgeous female cultivator. Unexpectedly, she was also a foundation establishment cultivator. This female cultivator's eyes were large, like a limpid pool. Although she didn't speak, the way she stared at Xiaohua was clearly filled with questions. It turns out that Xiaohua is here. Cui Hongli turned his head and said, I was wondering why Master got angry again. Xiaohua. When Xiaohua heard this, he didn't know if he was relaxed or angry. He glanced at Zhuo Minghui and Wu Hai. The two obviously weren't surprised by this name, so he could only sigh and cupped his hands. Yes, Cui Hongli, how are you? Of course I'm good. Cui Hongli smiled and said, I have now reached foundation establishment. Naturally, I haven't been as good as I am now. Then, he waved his hand and said with a smile, Qiming, come and greet Master and Master's wife. So this is Qiming. Zhuo Minghui's eyes were already looking at the female cultivator, waiting for Cui Hongli's introduction. At this time, she quickly stood up and called out in a slightly exaggerated manner. Junior Dui Qiming greets Martial Uncle Wu Hai and Martial Uncle Minghui. Dui Qiming respectfully bowed to Wu Hai and Zhuo Minghui. Forget it, get up. A smile appeared on Wu Hai's face, but Zhuo Minghui was already in front of her and reached out to pull her up. She turned her head and scolded Cui Hongli, look at you, this old woman kept saying that Qiming should come and meet us, but you always said that she was cultivating. Today, she didn't make any preparations, but you brought her here. Master's wife, we just casually came to see the two of you. What's there to prepare? Cui Hongli said with a face full of smiles. Martial uncles, this junior came to greet you. My master prepared a gift and asked this junior to bring it. Please kindly accept it. Dui Qiming followed Zhuo Minghui to a chair at the side. She didn't hurry to sit down, but clapped her hand and took out a pure white jade bottle from her storage bag and handed it to Zhuo Minghui. Martial Uncle Duiu is too polite. Zhuo Minghui smiled and received it. When she opened the jade bottle, she was shocked and said, "This is over 6,000 years old. Siming fruit." Yes, Martial Uncle has good eyesight. Dui Qiming's tone was slightly proud. She smiled and said, "My master obtained this 10 years ago when she was traveling. She hasn't used it much, and this junior's cultivation isn't enough. It's just right to give it to the two martial uncles. Then I thank your master." Zhuo Minghui handed over the jade bottle and said with a helpless smile. Then she looked at Zhuo Minghui. However, Zhuo Minghui's face was slightly embarrassed. Xiaohua's heart moved and was about to go up, but he heard Zhuo Minghui say, "I didn't expect you to come back today. It seems that I didn't prepare enough." "There's no need." Dui Qiming didn't say anything. Cui Hongli waved his hand and said, "When we came, Qiming already said that she wanted to give master and master's wife a surprise. There's no need to mention any gifts. Damn it, since it's like this young master's spirit herbs will be saved." Xiao Hua's footsteps stopped. "Hee, why aren't you sending a message to your eldest martial brother? Tell your sister-in-law and the others to hurry over." Zhuo Minghui smiled and said, "It's rare for our myriad Thunder Valley to gather like this. This disciple has already sent it. Eldest martial brother will be here in a moment." Cui Hongli smiled and said, "Hongli does things properly." Zhuo Minghui praised. Dui Qiming looked at Xiaohua with her bright eyes and said with a smile, "This is junior martial brother Xiaohua, right? I heard Hongli mention you a lot." Alas, Xiaohua looked at Dui Qiming and sighed in his heart. He couldn't tell her age just from her appearance. He could only address her based on her cultivation. However, when he saw Dui Qiming's expression and Cui Hongshan's expectant gaze, he stepped forward and bowed. "Junior Xiaohua greets Martial Aunt Dui." "Ah." Dui Qiming was very shocked, and her expression was a bit exaggerated. She covered her mouth and glanced at Cui Hongshan. Cui Hongshan also looked surprised and puzzled. Then Dui Qiming hurriedly waved her hand and said, "Junior martial brother Xiao, I and Hongshan are friends of the same generation. Your master is also I's martial uncle. Junior martial brother addressing I like this, I can't accept it." Then she turned her head and rebuked Cui Hongshan. "You see, how is junior martial brother Xiao as unbearable as you say? Why aren't you coming over and saying something? Don't blame me. How would I know?" Cui Hongshan's face was full of smiles. He raised his hand and said, "Xiaohua has never called me senior martial brother. I thought that if you followed me back to Myriad Thunder Valley, he wouldn't call you that. Who would have thought that he would actually call you martial uncle?" Cui Hongshan's warm smile was indeed eloquent. Dui Qiming very knowingly smiled back at him. Then Cui Hongshan turned his head and said to Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, Qiming is I's dual cultivation partner. If you call her martial uncle, then wouldn't you also have to call I martial uncle? Who is your dual cultivation partner?" Dui Qiming's face was crimson, and she immediately rebuked. "Did you see?" Xiaohua's face was calm as he said, "Martial uncle Dui didn't admit it." "You." Cui Hongshan's smile was somewhat cold, but it was only for a moment. He said with a smile, "In the end, you're not willing to call me senior martial brother. What do you think?" Xiaohua glanced at him and said without any trace of politeness, "Xiaohua, I have a question. What if I was Cui Hongshan's dual cultivation? How would you call I?" Dui Qiming's face was still red, but she still asked curiously. Fellow Daoist Dui, there are many names in Xiaoyu continent. Can't you call me whatever you want? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Fellow Daoist Dui. Dui Qiming clearly didn't expect Xiao Hua to answer like this. Xiao Hua, she helplessly scolded, how can you not know the rules? Why aren't you calling me senior martial sister? Martial uncle Dui. There's no need. Junior doesn't dare to compete with Xiao Hua on lightning planes. Dui Qiming said with a smile, Junior is also afraid of being trapped to death by his countless fireball talismans. Dui Qiming was obviously joking and wanted to ease the atmosphere. However, Dui Qiming, who hated Xiao Hua's lack of initiative the most, immediately turned cold after hearing this. Ah! Dui Qiming was very sensitive and discovered Dui Qiming's strange expression. She was slightly stunned and didn't understand the reason, so she quickly looked towards Cui Hongshan. Cui Hongshan had told Dui Qiming about Xiao Hua and Yan Xifeng's battle as a joke, only wanting to make the beauty smile. At this moment, he was also embarrassed. Just as he was about to mediate the situation, footsteps came from outside the cave. It was Xiang Yang and Yan Qinglian. Yan Qinglian walked at the front and saw Xiao Hua and Dui Qiming as soon as she entered the cave. She also felt the coldness in the cave. After bowing to Zhua Minghui, Yan Qinglian walked in front of Dui Qiming and held her hand with a smile. I've always heard junior martial brother Cui talk about junior martial sister, but I never had the chance to meet you. I didn't expect junior martial sister Dui to be so beautiful. It's no wonder that junior martial brother Cui was able to pick junior martial sister Dui out when he went to Dui Lei Palace on official business. Senior martial sister Yan, from what you're saying, I was also following master's orders and coincidentally went out with junior martial brother Cui. Dui Qiming was a little shy and answered in a low voice. Yan Qinglian also responded in a soft voice, and the two of them casually chatted. Cui Hongshan let out a long sigh of relief. His gaze swept past Xiao Hua, and an indescribable feeling surfaced in his eyes. He asked very strangely, Xiao Hua, why did you come uninvited today? Is there an omen of foundation establishment? I naturally have my own reasons for coming. As for foundation establishment or not, it seems to have nothing to do with you, right? Xiao Hua said indifferently. He, junior martial brother Xiao naturally came because he received elder brother's message. Xiang Yang quickly said. Chapter 1840. Your message. Helplessness sneered. Your summoning talisman is still in your storage bag, right? I was the one who told him to come. Disciple forgot. Xiang Yang scratched his head and said honestly, Disciple was thinking of looking for junior martial brother Xiao these past few days. When I saw him come to 10,000 Thunder Valley, I thought it was me who sent the summoning talisman. But I didn't think it was Master who sent it. Why are you looking for him? Helplessness wanted to get to the bottom of this. What Helplessness didn't expect was that Xiang Yang actually said very naturally, it's like this, Master. Disciple felt that his cultivation had reached a bottleneck, and now it's time for Foundation Establishment disciples to go out and gain experience. Qinglian wants to go out and gain experience, so Disciple also wants to accompany her. In the past, I was the only one in 10,000 Thunder Valley, and Master often went to stand guard, so Disciple didn't really go out and gain experience. But now, junior martial brother Cui has opened a residence in 10,000 Thunder Valley and needs to nourish his true essence. Disciple will ask for leave from Master and go out and gain experience. And, not bad. You really haven't gone out for a long time. Also, Helplessness had a rare amiable expression and didn't scold Xiangyang anymore. But halfway through, he stopped and changed the topic. You go out with Qinglian more often, and you don't have to come back so early. My 10,000 Thunder Valley has Hongshen, so you don't need to worry. Yes, disciple understands. Xiangyang bowed. Cui Hongshan also smiled. Eldest senior martial brother, please go. Master has little brother here to look after him, so nothing will happen. Then I'll have to trouble junior martial brother Cui. Xiangyang turned his head and smiled. Also, eldest senior martial brother doesn't need to worry too much about teaching Xiaohua. Master already told little brother that little brother won't lower himself to his level. Cui Hongshan glanced at Xiaohua and said to Xiangyang. Damn, an early foundation establishment cultivator wants to teach this young master. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Oh, junior martial brother Cui misunderstood. Seeing this, Xiangyang hurriedly waved his hand and said, I just wanted to call Xiaohua over and ask master a favor. Your senior martial brother and I will take Xiaohua out to gain experience. See if you can. Eldest senior brother. Xiaohua's eyes were somewhat moist. Previously, when Xiangyang said that he was going to take him out to gain experience, he just casually said it. However, he didn't expect that eldest senior brother, who was nearing the end of his lifespan, would actually still be thinking about his foundation establishment when he went out to gain experience with his sister-in-law. This made Xiaohua. How could he endure this? Helplessly, he looked at the incomparably loyal eldest disciple in front of him. He was used to scolding him, but the words were stuck in his throat like cotton. He couldn't bear to say a single word. An indescribable numbness rushed into his eyes. Even if he used the secret technique of the late foundation establishment stage, he couldn't stop it. Helplessly, he had no choice but to look around the cave, as if there were many old cobwebs. He rolled his eyes a few times before he sighed and continued to scold, You have good intentions. Why didn't you build your foundation earlier? Even if you're not at foundation establishment, you still don't need to guard Myriad Thunder Valley. Master, there's no need to uncover old memories. It was rare for Xiangyang to see helplessness and warmth. He hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, To be able to see that my Myriad Thunder Valley now has Junior Martial Brother Xiao and Junior Martial Brother Cui, and that Junior Martial Brother Cui is now a foundation establishment cultivator, disciple has never regretted what he did before. Alas, Xiangyang, my Myriad Thunder Valley owes you. Zhua Minghui said the words that she couldn't say no matter what. Listen to what Master said, disciple is a disciple of Myriad Thunder Valley. Doing things for Myriad Thunder Valley is my duty. If Myriad Thunder Valley doesn't exist anymore, it won't be disciples Myriad Thunder Valley anymore. How can disciples still be Master's disciple? Xiangyang said very naturally, then turned to look at Cui Hongshan. In the future, Junior Martial Brother Cui's burden will be heavy. Not only will you have to bear the honor of Myriad Thunder Valley, but you will also have to bear the harmony of Myriad Thunder Valley. Cui Hongshan naturally knew what Xiangyang was talking about, but he just smiled and nodded slightly. In addition, I made you two lose face in front of the other disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. I've always felt guilty. Today, I'll take this opportunity to apologize to you two for making you, alas. Xiangyang didn't say anything else. He walked in front of Cui Hongshan and bowed deeply. Io, eldest senior martial brother, what are you doing? Cui Hongshan was stunned and moved. He hurriedly grabbed Xiangyang's hand. Ever since he entered the Imperial Thunder sect, he was different from Xiaohua. Xiaohua hid in the eastern mountain range and only wanted to cultivate properly. He, on the other hand, wanted to rely on the methods of an aristocratic family's disciple to blend in with the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples and create his own world. In this way, he would be ridiculed by the other disciples. Xiang Yang's matter and Xiao Hua's matter had deeply pierced his heart. Although he was still respectful to Xiang Yang, which was far from the way he treated Xiao Hua's side, there was naturally no lack of complaints in his heart. Now, although he had followed his own wishes and made himself the backbone of the myriad Thunder Valley in the future, when he saw Xiang Yang suddenly deign to bow to him, he was still shocked. How could Cui Hongshan stop Xiang Yang from bowing? When Xiang Yang bowed, Cui Hongshan was still somewhat at a loss and looked helplessly at him. No expression could be seen on Helplessness's face, as if he was thinking about something. Junior Martial Brother Xiao. Xiang Yang walked in front of Xiao Hua and prepared to bow. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's hand was still the same as before, as firm as metal and stone. Xiang Yang couldn't bow and couldn't help but frown. Could it be? Junior Martial Brother wants me to use my full strength. Eldest Senior Martial Brother, what did you do wrong? On what basis are you apologizing to little brother? Xiao Hua's face was heavy like water as he said, little brother has never felt that eldest senior martial brother has lost little brother's face. Moreover, little brother has always been proud to have a eldest senior martial brother like you. No matter if it was in the Thunder Palace or the Imperial Thunder Sect, as long as little brother mentioned eldest senior martial brother's name, I would always respectfully address you, never slacking off in the slightest. If eldest senior martial brother feels that little brother is wrong, then eldest senior martial brother can use your full strength to apologize to little brother. Junior martial brother Xiao, this is a knot in big brother's heart, you, don't make things difficult for big brother. As Xiang Yang spoke, sure enough, he stirred up his magic power and very stubbornly bowed in greeting. Eldest senior martial brother, if you bow like this, then little brother's heart knot will also be born. You, also don't make things difficult for little brother. Xiao Hua smiled and raised his arm. Ah! At this time, Xiang Yang was incomparably flabbergasted. This time was different from before. He really wanted to bow, and the magic power in his body had already been stirred up to 70%. He was now a middle foundation establishment cultivator. 70% magic power was not something a peak chi condensation disciple could compare to. Even if Xiao Hua's divine power was astonishing, he still absolutely wouldn't be able to resist. Xiang Yang. Helpless, he opened his mouth in a rare occasion. What Xiao Hua said is correct. These past few years, Master has been too harsh on you. The one who should say words of apology should be Master. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Calm to vote for it. Chapter 1841. Xue Minghui also agreed. Since Xiao Hua doesn't want you to bow, you shouldn't make things difficult for him. If you make things difficult for him, you're also making things difficult for us. Don't tell me you also want your master to apologize to you. You see, eldest senior brother. You should get up. Xiao Hua smiled and raised his arm, actually helping Xiang Yang up. At the same time, he even winked at Xiang Yang. This. Xiang Yang was stupefied. He still hadn't removed his magic power and was helped up by Xiao Hua just like that. He almost wanted to rub his eyes to see if he was dreaming. There was only one thought in his mind. Junior brother Zhao's strength, how great is it? Husband, master's wife is right. Yan Qinglian brushed her sleeves and said with a forced smile, don't make things difficult for Xiao Hua. You're making things difficult for yourself. Oh. Xiang Yang came back to his senses. He smiled bitterly and sighed. I have really shamed myriad Thunder Valley. My heart, Xiaohua interrupted, doesn't eldest senior brother still have Xiangjili? His name will definitely spread throughout Dawn Rain Continent in the future. Hee, that's just a reason for me to comfort myself. Xiang Yang's brows relaxed and he shook his head. Moreover, even if his name spreads throughout Dawn Rain Continent, it's still Xiangjili's name. What does it have to do with his father? Xiang Yang originally liked talking about Xiangjili very much, but he was unwilling to talk about it now. Clearly, he was also somewhat disappointed. Alright, husband, Xiaohua has been here for a long time. You should also tell him about this matter. Zhuo Minghui saw that Cui Hongshan was somewhat embarrassed and Dui Qiming was sitting there, not knowing how to interrupt. Helplessness's voice was also amiable as he said, Thunderclap Palace sent an order. Now that the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden spiritual energy has recovered, many kinds of spiritual herbs are needed. I'm afraid you alone won't be able to do it. You should assign some new disciples to manage. Xiaohua frowned and thought, as expected, the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden is no longer a pure land. However, I've already replied to this matter. You should also return the token to Thunderclap Palace. Helplessness said expressionlessly. Why? Xiaohua asked curiously. Because they will be leaving in 10 days, and you will also be leaving the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden in 10 days. He clapped his hands helplessly, and 2 messaging talismans appeared in his hands. He raised his hand and said, Sunlei Palace's martial uncle Sun Ming sent a message. Her disciple is going out to experience Foundation establishment, and she specifically asked for you to accompany her. Master can't disobey martial uncle Sun's words. Besides, you've been meditating in the Eastern Ridge for a long time. It's time for you to go out and gain experience. I've already agreed to it. Then, he looked at Xiang Yang and said gently, your eldest senior brother is also going out to train. You can go with him. Shue. She is already about to build her foundation. Xiaohua stared blankly. He hadn't received Shue's message. He didn't expect that Shue would enter Foundation establishment so soon. I'm afraid only Shue who has reached Foundation establishment would allow you to accompany her. How could other people trouble an aura refining disciple like you? Look at you. You joined the Imperial Thunder sect at the same time as Shue. Back then, Shue was only in the 7th layer of aura refining, but you're in the 10th layer. Now, she unexpectedly wants to build her foundation before you. It's fine if you know the inside story, but if you don't, won't you push this matter onto me? You'll say I didn't teach my disciple well. This time, you have to comprehend more. I'm not asking you to build your foundation this time, but you have to make more preparations for building your foundation in the future. 50 years. Alas, you're still some distance away from 50 years. And, disciple understands. Xiaohua was also happy to hear his master's tactful tone. He bowed and said, disciple will certainly remember what master said. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, he helplessly glared at him. You don't have to say one thing to my face and another behind my back. You only need to remember half of what master said, and you won't be distracted. You could have built your foundation long ago. Then, he thought of something and turned to Dui Qiming. Martial niece Dui must also know that Dao is always the most important thing in cultivation. If you don't have Dao skills, no matter how powerful your magic is, it's useless. Yes, martial uncle is right. Dui Qiming slightly stood up and said, Master has also warned I many times that Dao is the foundation, and magic is the end. Only when one's Dao skills are solid can magic be effective. If one only pursues the profoundness of magic and the mysteries of magic, then they're neglecting the essentials and chasing after the trifles. Good. Helplessly clapped and said, such a simple and easy to understand principle, but some people just don't take it seriously. If they're simply obsessed with magic, then it's not that they're not making progress, but they're still biting off more than they can chew, trying to comprehend other things by analogy and master everything. Xiaohua smiled bitterly in his heart. Wasn't helplessness talking about him? Unfortunately, helplessness said too little. Xiaohua wasn't just biting off more than he could chew, he wasn't just comprehending other things by analogy. No matter if it was the cultivation method of the 18th layer of qi refining, the phoenix battle body, or the dragonization art, which one of them could helplessness even dream of? Let's not talk about the soul cultivation method, the Buddha Sarira, or the heavenly Tao space. Master, disciple will go back and reflect on his mistakes. Xiaohua bowed and said. What do you mean by closing your door and reflecting on your mistakes? You're not happy just because I said a few words to you. Helplessness was rather moved by Xiang Yang's matter, so he spoke more, and then he berated. Junior Marshal Brother Xiao just found out that he's going to go out and gain experience. Time is tight, so let him go back and pack up, and prepare to hand over to the disciple sent by Thunder's shocking palace. Xiang Yang hurriedly said. Helplessness unhappily glanced at Xiang Yang, and coldly snorted, I don't know what I've done to have accepted you two as disciples. One is honest and considerate, one is compassionate, one is always considerate of others, and the other doesn't dare to be ruthless. Damn it, if it was me, I would have crushed that guy to death like a chicken. He actually dared to behave atrociously in my 10,000 Thunder Valley. These words were very abrupt. Dui Qiming was slightly stunned, not knowing what helplessness meant. Xiaohua suddenly understood. Helplessness scolded him so ruthlessly in front of the Temple of Life and Death because he didn't act ruthlessly towards Yan Xifeng. That's right, Xinjia bullied Myriad Thunder Valley and forced helplessness to swear a blood oath on the spot. This opportunity to go out was wasted by Xiaohua, so how could he not be angry? After entering the Temple of Life and Death, everyone was responsible for their own life and death. Even if he crushed Yan Xifeng to death, Xinjia absolutely wouldn't say a single word of complaint. If he didn't let his master be happy, then the unlucky one would naturally be him. Master, 2 people from Thunder's shocking palace died in this disciple's hands, and this disciple is currently not Xinjia's opponent. Of course, I don't want to cause more trouble. Xiaohua bitterly smiled in his heart, but he couldn't say it out loud. Forget it, go back and reflect on yourself. Helplessness waved his hand, and said, I've already sent the message to Thunder's shocking palace the day before yesterday. I'm afraid that the people coming will go to Eastern Ridge in a few days. After you hand over, go stay in Xiang Yang's cave for the time being. Yes, this disciple understands. Xiaohua bowed and left. Dui Qiming listened with interest and also watched with interest as Xiaohua calmly left. It was as if Xiaohua's scolding of helplessness was nothing more than a passing wind. Even she could see that although Xiaohua said he understood, he actually didn't take it to heart. How could Dui Qiming not know? This was also the first time she saw a disciple who didn't know when to advance or retreat. When Xiaohua returned to Eastern Ridge's medicine garden and looked at the medicine garden that he used as puppet to level, Xiaohua's heart was filled with emotion. Although he didn't personally level it, it was still the result of his hard work. Originally, he thought that he could still stay here for a few more years until he reached Foundation establishment before he could leave. Who would have thought that his master's plans couldn't compare to his master's? Helplessly, he was sent away with a single sentence. However, accompanying Xue and her experiential learning would be a sweet journey. It would also be a good way to make up for what he owed her. Moreover, Xiang Yang and Yan Qinglian, two experts in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, would accompany her. He only needed to hide behind the two of them, so why not? The spiritual plants in Eastern Ridge's medicine garden were all planted in Xiaohua's space, so he didn't put them away. Instead, he returned to his cave and put away the spirit talisman for the rabbit formation and the formation plate for the heavenly fire formation. Xiaohua simply closed his eyes and cultivated outside his cave. 10 days passed in a flash. Unexpectedly, Xiaohua didn't receive any message from Shui. Just as he was astonished, the disciples of Thunder's shocking palace arrived. This time, there were actually 10 of them. The first was a disciple who joined Thunder's shocking sect a few years later than Xiaohua. His cultivation was already at the early stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm. The 9 following behind him had even weaker cultivations, only at the early stage of the 9th layer of the Qi refining realm. The 10 of them respectfully saluted Xiaohua, then took out the Thunder Shocking Palace's order and handed it over to him. Xiaohua glanced at it, then handed the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden's order tablet over to them. He smiled and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Liu, I entrust this Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden to you." Junior Marshal Brother Liu's name was Liu Jing. After receiving the order tablet, he put it away properly and said with a smile, "The Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden is sparsely populated, so no one likes to come here. Senior Marshal Brother Xiao, you've been here alone for so many years. We all admire you. If it weren't for the abundant spiritual qi of heaven and earth, to tell you the truth, even if you beat I to death, I wouldn't have come here." Xiaohua was amused by Liu Jing's frankness. He smiled and said, "I naturally like tranquility. This place is the most undisturbed place, so of course I would choose this place. Let's go, I will tell you all about the medicine garden I've opened these past few years. Thank you for your trouble, Senior Marshal Brother Xiao." The 10 people bowed. When the 10 people saw the medicine garden Xiaohua had opened and leveled, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The other 9 people looked at each other and didn't say anything. Instead, it was Liu Jing who shook his head and said, "Senior Marshal Brother Xiao, you've really worked hard. With this kind of foundation in the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden, we don't need to work too hard. It's nothing." Xiaohua waved his hand, feeling content in his heart. Then, he looked at the others and said in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Brother Liu, I have some questions. Can I ask you in private?" "Of course." Liu Jing nodded. "That's right, I also have some questions to ask Senior Marshal Brother." "Okay." Xiaohua let the 9 people familiarize themselves with the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden's terrain, then he brought Liu Jing to his abode. "What questions do you have?" Xiaohua asked. Liu Jing looked around and asked in a low voice, "Senior Marshal Brother Xiao, I heard that many disciples have died in this Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden. Moreover, several seniors have also died nearby. Is this true? If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it." Chapter 1842. Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. He glanced at him and asked curiously, "Where did you hear these things from?" This disciple entered the Imperial Thunder sect, so I naturally don't know these secrets. However, among the disciples who came to the Eastern Ridge with me this time, there were indeed a few direct disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. Their eyes and ears weren't as closed as mine. I don't know where they got the information and told me in private on the way here." Liu Jing smiled apologetically. "However, since Senior Brother Xiao has been here for so many years, these things are obviously just rumors." Xiaohua thought for a moment and smiled. These things might be true. However, I have only opened the formation of the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden in these past few years. I absolutely won't go out unless something happens, so naturally I haven't encountered anything strange. Presumably, you also know that there's a forbidden area of my Imperial Thunder sect near the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. The so-called senior's death should be related to that forbidden area. As long as we don't go near the forbidden area, there shouldn't be any problems. Like I said. Lu Jing smiled. If something happens, it's definitely something you ask for. However, junior brothers all wanted me to ask senior brother if there's any secret life-saving technique, so I have no choice but to ask. Life-saving secret technique. Xiao Hua was secretly delighted. I killed Yi Yuan, so you guys naturally won't have to worry about your lives. As for the ruthless methods of Foundation establishment seniors, presumably you guys also won't encounter them. I don't have any secret techniques. Well said, we're all fellow disciples. If I can say it, I will naturally say it. Xiao Hua nodded. This is a life-saving matter, so I won't hide it. Then. Senior brother, what do you want to ask? Lu Jing also asked. Oh, I just saw on the order that among the 10 disciples who came to the Eastern Ridge, there were actually 4 or 5 disciples surnamed Jin from the Thunderous Palace. These disciples. Don't they usually work in the more comfortable chores of the Thunderous Palace? Why did they come to the Eastern Ridge? I originally thought I saw wrongly, but it seems that's not the case. These are the direct disciples of the Thunderous Palace that I just mentioned. Lu Jing smiled. However, their cultivations haven't improved, so they weren't favored by the Thunderous Palace masters. Naturally, they were sent to the Eastern Ridge. The direct disciples of the Thunderquake Palace are actually unable to make any progress in their cultivation. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. Haven't their aptitudes always been better than the disciples we sent to the Imperial Thunder sect? A faint smile appeared on Lu Jing's face as he said, Senior Brother Zhao's words were true a few years ago. However, there are some changes now. Those direct disciples no longer have good aptitudes. Even those who had good aptitudes before have begun to regress. Why is that? Xiao Hua was even more baffled. He had never heard of a person's aptitude regressing. Who knows? Lu Jing said disdainfully, I won't hide it from you, senior martial brother. These direct disciples have been cultivating for a longer time than I. Even when I entered the Imperial Thunder sect, my cultivation was only slightly higher than theirs. Over the years, I's cultivation has been constantly increasing while they have stagnated. Even they themselves don't know the reason. Oh, so it's like that. Xiao Hua faintly nodded. That's not all. Among the disciples who entered the Imperial Thunder sect, the vast majority of the disciples from cultivation clans such as I improved their cultivation very quickly. Comparatively speaking, only half of the direct disciples are able to keep up. Lu Jing said very proudly, otherwise, the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden wouldn't have let me lead the group. Of course, if Senior Martial Brother Xiao didn't have to go somewhere else, this place would naturally follow Senior Martial Brother Zhao's lead. What about the loose cultivators? What are their cultivations like? Xiao Hua asked very naturally. This disciple isn't too sure. A trace of disdain appeared on the corner of Lu Jing's mouth. This disciple doesn't have a good relationship with any loose cultivators. Furthermore, recently, my Imperial Thunder sect has rarely recruited disciples from loose cultivators. Xiao Hua still wanted to ask a few more questions, but at this moment, the spell formation outside the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden was making a ruckus. Lu Jing noticed it and looked at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Take a look. They might not necessarily be looking for me. Who would have thought that when Lu Jing opened the spell formation of the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden, there would be two charming female disciples outside. One of them was actually at the early stage of foundation establishment. Lu Jing didn't dare to be negligent and promptly saluted. Xiaohua smiled and said, "What are the two of you doing here?" The two people who came were Shueshua and Sun Shu. I heard that junior martial brother Xiao was going to go out with junior martial sister Shua to gain experience. As your senior martial sister, I naturally came to send you off. Sun Shu said with a smile like a flower. Xiaohua smiled and looked at Shueshua again. He said warmly, "I'm afraid you already knew. Why didn't you send me a message earlier?" Shueshua was somewhat shy and her face was slightly red. "I didn't plan to go out and gain experience. It's just that Master is going into seclusion. She said that she might not be able to come out during the training period, so she simply let me go now. As for Master sending a message to Martial Uncle Helplessness, I just found out." Sun Shu's face was filled with undisguised envy. She nudged Shueshua with her arm and said with a smile, "Junior martial sister, you should be content. Last time, in order to bring junior martial brother Xiao out to gain experience, I spent a lot of effort. You, on the other hand, Master already arranged everything. I can't help but envy you. Senior martial sister, you're already a foundation establishment cultivator. How can you lower yourself to the same level as me?" Shueshua said with a smile. Lu Jing was surprised when he heard this. He really didn't expect this unremarkable senior martial brother Xiao to have such a good relationship with two female disciples with profound cultivations. It was to the extent that they were both at the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm and had a faint feeling of dual cultivation. "All right, let's go." Xiaohua waved his hand and turned to Lu Jing, saying, "Junior martial brother Lu, I'll leave the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden to you. I'll have to trouble you in the future." "I don't dare. Disciple will wait for the day senior martial brother Xiao builds his foundation." Lu Jing hurriedly returned the greeting. "Don't worry, junior martial brother Xiao," Sun Shu quickly said. "Junior martial brother Qian also said that he would send you off. He should be here by now. Junior martial brother Xiao is going out to gain experience. How could I not come?" Sun Shu's voice hadn't faded away when Qian Diheng's figure flew over from afar. "Ah!" Thunder evasion. Seeing this, Lu Jing's jaw almost dropped, especially when he saw that Qian Diheng was only an early-stage foundation building cultivator. "Oh my, even senior martial brother Qian came to send me off. Junior martial brother is really honored." Xiaohua smiled and pulled Shueshua's hand to welcome him. Sun Shu, on the other hand, didn't find it strange at all and flew up as well. "Damn it, this senior martial brother Xiao seems to not care about this foundation building senior at all." Lu Jing's eyes revealed an envious expression. In midair, Qian Diheng clapped his hand and took out a storage pouch. He said with a smile, "This is something I prepared for you. Junior martial brother, please accept it. I hope that junior martial brother can return with a full load this time." Xiaohua took it and swept it with his divine sense. He smiled and said, "The storage pouch you gave junior martial brother last time already had a lot of foundation building pills. What are these few pills for? Are you afraid that junior martial brother won't have enough? If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Calm to vote for it." Chapter 1843. Don't mention it. Qian Diheng waved his hand. The foundation establishment pill from last time was what junior brother Xiao deserved. Moreover, that thing is easy to sell outside. It's very easy to exchange for magic tools and spirit stones. This time, I asked for these pills from the Earth Thunder Palace's alchemists. The quality is excellent. It's a token of my appreciation. Xiaohua understood, and his heart felt warm. He put away the storage pouch and said with a smile, "Then this little brother won't be polite. If there are any good things during the training, this little brother will also remember to give you a share." Qian Diheng's eyes lit up and he laughed. "Ha ha ha, I was waiting for you to say that." "TSK, Xiaohua shook his head in disappointment. Senior brother Qian is really too unscrupulous. That. Hearing Sun Shu's voice, Xiaohua hurriedly turned his head. Sure enough, Sun Shu was also holding a storage pouch and looking at Xiaohua with a smile. Forget it. I'll take them all." Xiaohua laughed loudly and took them without any trace of politeness. "You're all at the early stage of foundation establishment. I'm only at the qi refinement realm. What do you need? Let's hear it." Qian Diheng glanced at Sun Shu and smiled slyly. "Go ahead and take it. We won't dislike it." Xiaohua looked at the two and was speechless for a moment. "Xiaohua, let's talk while we walk." Shui thought Xiaohua was embarrassed and changed the topic. Xiaohua held Shui's warm hand and smiled. Don't worry. We still have fellow travelers." "Ha! Who else wants to go out for experiential learning?" Shui was obviously disappointed. It's I's eldest senior brother and senior sister-in-law. Xiaohua smiled. "Wait for I to send a messaging talisman." "Oh, so that's how it is." Shui suddenly understood. Not long after, Xiang Yang's messaging talisman flew back. It was already on the way to the Imperial Thunder sect. "Let's go. Eldest senior brother is almost there." Xiaohua urged his transcendence energy. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng also flew behind him like how they did in the past, heading straight for the mountain gate. The mountain gate of the Imperial Thunder sect was still there, but there weren't any disciples on the way down the mountain. Only the people of the myriad Thunder Valley were standing in front of the guest pavilion. When Xiaohua arrived, Helpless and the others seemed to have already warned Xiang Yang. Looking at Xiaohua, Sun Shu, and Qian Diheng, Helpless swallowed the words he wanted to scold back. Only after the four of them came forward to greet him did he glance at Xiaohua and say indifferently, "Follow your eldest senior brother out. If there's anything, just ask more." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiaohua bowed in thanks. Shui will go out with you to gain experience. Learn from others. Even if you can't build your foundation this time, you have to prepare for the future. Helplessly, he said, "Also, ask your eldest senior brother what's going on with the second foundation establishment. This is also a rare opportunity for you." "Yes, Dizzy understands." Xiaohua replied again. "The things that Master gave you have already been handed over to eldest senior brother. I also have a few medicinal pills here. You can keep them for yourself." Cui Hongshan heard Helpless words and clapped his hands. Very naturally, he took out a bottle of medicinal pills from his storage pouch and handed it over. His intentions were admittedly good, but his actions were rather condescending. Xiaohua didn't even look at it. He shook his head and said, "Many thanks, I have never lacked medicinal pills." "You?" Cui Hongshan frowned. Just as he was about to speak, he saw the displeasure on Helpless' face. In his heart, he was delighted and said somewhat pitifully, "You and I are from the same sect. You don't even want to accept I's small token of appreciation. Little brat, what are you doing?" Helpless' expression suddenly changed and he cursed, "Your senior brother Cui has good intentions. How can you treat other people's good intentions as ill intent?" Then, he looked at Cui Hongshan and said, Hongshan, ignore him. This guy is probably worried that he won't be able to build his foundation and will waste medicinal pills for nothing. Seeing the pride on Cui Hongshan's face, Xiaohua became angry. He stared straight into Cui Hongshan's eyes. After a few breaths, the anger on his face disappeared. He stepped forward and bowed. Many thanks for Senior Cui's good intentions. Junior already has enough medicinal pills and doesn't dare to ask for more. Junior appreciates Senior's good intentions. Xiaohua's address actually had a hint of cutting off all ties. Little brat. Helpless became even more furious. Okay, it's already late. They should also leave. Zhua Minghui hurriedly said, moreover, Xiaohua is with Xiangyang. He can't use any medicinal pills. Helpless coldly snorted and no longer looked at Xiaohua. Cui Hongshan also had an innocent expression. Thus, Xiangyang and Yan Qinglian took Xiaohua and Shui, bowed to everyone and went down the mountain along the mountain path. When the four figures disappeared from the mountain path, Helpless' gaze was still there. It was unknown whether he was looking at Xiangyang or Xiaohua. Xiangyang's group of four flew out of the Imperial Thunder sect for more than half a day. Xiangyang was the first to stop in midair. He turned to look at Xiaohua and said with a smile, Junior brother Xiao, where are we going? Where? Xiaohua was stunned, then understood. He hurriedly turned to Shui and asked, Shui, where are you going to train? Me? Shui's eyes moved and said with a smile, Master left a message. I'll listen to Senior brother Xiao wherever we go. It can't be. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Xiangyang and said, Senior brother, tell me, where are you going? Hee, everyone got it wrong. Xiangyang also said with a smile, because we heard that we were going to train together with junior sister Shui, we thought that Marshal Uncle Sun had already arranged everything. We just had to go together. We didn't have much preparation before. Where did Senior brother want to go before? Xiaohua asked. We don't have anywhere to go. We just want to take advantage of the time and walk around Xiaoyu continent. Xiangyang glanced at Yan Qinglian. Both of their gazes were filled with tenderness. Junior sister has a place to go, but I don't know if I should say it. Shui saw that everyone didn't have any ideas, so she said somewhat shyly. Junior sister Shui, there's no harm in saying it. Yan Qinglian said with a smile. Junior sister read a travelogue in Sunlei Palace. It talked about the Guihe Sea. From the records, the sea was extremely beautiful, like a paradise on earth. As Shui said this, she actually started reading. Unknowingly, the surroundings were completely engulfed by darkness. Everywhere was pitch black, and the sea seemed even more unfathomable. Everything was silent, and only the waves beat against the beach, letting out a low and rhythmic sound. The playful little waves were no longer as turbulent and surging as they were during the day. They gently caressed the reefs on the shore, letting out a hua-hua sound. It was as if they were humming a moving lullaby, lulling people to sleep. The vast sea seemed to be connected with the sky. The torrential waves crashed against the reefs, letting out a thunderous sound. In the azure night sky, a full moon cast its clear radiance onto the ink-blue waves. A long, trembling pillar of light appeared on the surface of the sea. The sea was like a mother who had just woken up, emitting a warm aura. The gentle waves were a morning song she was humming. The seagulls were like her children, flapping their wings to this song and circling around her chest. Great! Xiaohua and Xiangyang didn't speak. Yan Qinglian now clapped her hands and said with a smile, I've long heard that the sea is the place where all rivers return to their origin. It's just that I've never been there. Junior sister Shui's words are exactly what I was thinking. Xiangyang helplessly looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua's eyes were also filled with helplessness. After all, Xiaohua didn't hear anything from what Xue said just now. What blue waves, what blue sky, what azure night sky, how could they compare to the profoundness of the heavenly Tao? How could they compare to the enjoyment of cultivation? Unfortunately, since Xue said so, and Yan Qinglian also agreed, the two male cultivators probably didn't have any excuses. It was still Xiangyang who reacted quickly. He clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Madam's words are exactly what I was thinking. I also wanted to see the majesty of the sea for a long time." "Great, great." Xiaohua curled his lips. He didn't think that his usually honest senior brother would be so flattering. "Darling Xiao," Xue asked somewhat sweetly, "are you going?" "Great." Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said in surprise, "Junior sister Xue really spoke the truth in I's heart. I've long wanted to see the magnificent waves of the sea. If it wasn't for junior sister's reminder, I would have forgotten my many years of wish." "Ha ha ha," Xiangyang laughed and said, "Then we'd better hurry up and leave." After flying for another half a day, they saw that the sky was already dark. Xiangyang and Yan Qinglian looked at each other and both of them landed at the foot of a mountain. Xiangyang said with a smile, "It's already late. We don't need to constantly be on the move. Let's rest first before leaving." "Very good." Xiaohua looked at Xue and also agreed. But then Xiangyang said, "We husband and wife will find a cave to rest. You two can also find a place to rest." After saying that, the two of them held hands and flew to the east, leaving behind Xiaohua and Xue who looked at each other in dismay. Damn, this senior brother. Xiaohua was actually slightly embarrassed. Xue's face was even redder. But after a moment, Xue said in a mosquito-like voice, "Xiaohua, when your senior sister Xue goes out to experience the world, how does she rest?" Xiaohua said with a smile, "Naturally I'm alone. How would I know how the three of them rest?" "Then, what about Xiaohua and big sister Hongxia?" Xue's voice became even softer. Hee, could it be that you want to know?" Xiaohua's heart swayed. He held Xue's small hand and said in a low voice. Xue's face was abnormally hot, but then it became somewhat pale. She forced a smile and said, "Xiaohua, I haven't built my foundation yet. What you and big sister have done is not something I can accept. I hope Xiaohua can forgive me." How could Xiaohua not know? He used his right index finger to tap the back of Xue's jade-like hand and said with a smile, "Your husband also hasn't built his foundation. Wife also has to forgive your husband." Bah! Xue spat lightly. Her heart was indescribably sweet. This experience was really what she was looking forward to. But then, Xue stared blankly and anxiously said, Xiaohua, you haven't built your foundation. You actually and big sister Hongxia." Speaking to hear, Xue's face became even redder. Chapter 1844. Of course. Xiaohua was stunned. Obviously, he hadn't thought of it until now. The Imperial Thunder sect only allowed dual cultivation disciples after they built their foundation, or maybe aura refining disciples were no longer able to advance, so they were allowed to find a dual cultivation partner among aura refining disciples. He hadn't built his foundation yet, but he was already dual cultivation with Hongxia Fairy. Would it affect his cultivation? However, when he thought about how vigorous he would be after dual cultivation and how his cultivation would advance rapidly, Xiaohua denied it again and said with a smile, "I'm afraid it won't affect my cultivation." That's good. Xue's heart finally relaxed after hearing this. She held Xiaohua's hand, and her palm was unexpectedly a little wet. I hope Master will take pity on me. Her words were really a pun, causing Xiaohua's heart to boil with anger again. Let's go, we'll find a cave to rest in. Xiaohua blinked his eyes. His words naturally also had a pun, causing Shueishue's redness that had just subsided to surge out again. Ha! Xiaohua laughed and released his divine sense, but after searching for a long time, he really couldn't find any suitable place in the surroundings. Forget it, let's do it here. Xiaohua pointed his finger at the foot of the mountain, next to a small stream. There's no cave here, right? Shueishue was a little hesitant. Although sleeping outside was nothing for peak aura refining disciples, Shueishue still felt that it wasn't safe. Watch your husband's methods. Xiaohua waved his hand, and several puppets appeared out of thin air and rushed towards the place Xiaohua pointed at. They seemed to be familiar with the place, and in just a moment, a rather flat cave appeared in front of Shueishue. This cave, how is it? Xiaohua waved his hand and collected the puppets standing in front of him, then said with a smile. Those are puppets. Shueishue asked, dumbfounded. Exactly. Such precious things, you actually used them to make a cave. Shueishue couldn't help but ask. Not letting them work, but making your husband work. Xiaohua pulled Shueishue's hand and strolled into the cave. Although Shueishue had confided in Xiaohua and Xiaohua had accepted it, this was the first time they had stayed together so intimately. Her heart was beating wildly with her own footsteps. Xiaohua seemed to have heard her thoughts. With a clap of his hand, he took out several dozen sparkling talismans and waved them to lay out the array. Shueishue scanned the array with her divine sense and discovered that her divine sense couldn't penetrate the array. While she sighed with admiration at her sweetheart's brilliant methods, her entire body went soft. Seeing that Shueishue actually went limp on his arm, Xiaohua lowered his head and kissed Shueishue's forehead. He said tenderly, Shueishue, don't worry. If I don't get your master's permission, I won't officially dual cultivate with you. I definitely won't make things difficult for you. Shueishue's heart was filled with love, but at the same time, there was also a trace of disappointment. She kissed Xiaohua back for a while, then said with her charming eyes, this concubine knows that Xiaohua treats this concubine the best. After that, the two of them were intimate for a while, then each occupied a corner of the cave and closed their eyes to cultivate. Not to mention Xiaohua's calm face, he was neither happy nor sad as he focused on refining the flames in his meridians. Shueishue's heart was in knots. After thinking about it, she looked at Xiaohua's body covered in terrifying flames and didn't circulate her cultivation technique for the entire night. When the sky brightened, Xiaohua opened his eyes and said with a smile, What were you thinking about last night? This husband wanted to remind you, but I was afraid that you'd easily go berserk if you forced yourself to cultivate, so I didn't stop to talk to you. Nothing. Shueishue forced a smile. Then, as if she thought of something, she clapped her hands and took out a pink jade slip and handed it to Xiaohua. What's this? Xiaohua took it and immersed his divine sense into it. There was a layer of restriction inside the jade slip. This is this concubine's gift to husband. Husband, please don't forcibly break the restriction at this time. Shueishue hurriedly stopped Xiaohua and said, This restriction is my Sunlei Palace's secret technique. It's extremely mysterious. If you forcibly break it, you'll only need to touch it slightly to destroy the thing inside the jade slip. Then. Xiaohua was even more baffled. When the time comes, husband will naturally know. Shueishue's face was crimson red. Ha, this husband knows. Xiaohua embraced Shueishue and lightly kissed her. Shueishue responded strongly, as if venting out last night's tossing and turning. That's right, when husband was cultivating, what was the flame around your body? Shue was a little out of breath and asked curiously. Nothing else, it was a type of spirit stone that this husband uses for cultivation. Xiaohua released Shue and said with a smile, however, it's already gone now, and it's also useful for fire attribute constitutions. Oh, so it's like that. Shue suddenly understood. Right at this time, Xiang Yang's message talisman flew from outside the cave. Hee, let's go, eldest senior brother is getting impatient from waiting. Xiaohua smiled and opened the message talisman. It's your fault for dilly-dallying. Shue used her fist to pound Xiaohua's back and rebuked. Me? Xiaohua was abnormally wronged. I didn't do anything. Of course, Xiang Yang and Yan Qinglian's gazes didn't think so, they both looked thought-provoking. Xiaohua wanted to say something, but he didn't know how to open his mouth, he kept feeling awkward. After flying for half a day, he finally understood. Xiang Yang originally didn't think much, but he and Shue probably thought too much, right? Sure enough, when he looked at Xiang Yang's gaze again, it was incomparably clear, without any meaning. Shue also seemed to understand, and her previous shyness also gradually disappeared. After flying like this for several days, just as they were about to pass through a teleportation formation, Shue's expression suddenly changed. She pulled Xiaohua and said in a low voice, "Husband Xiao, this concubine, suddenly has an idea, I don't know if I should say it." "Say it." Xiaohua saw Shue being so serious and knew it was a bit troublesome, so he asked in a low voice. This concubine has already entered the Imperial Thunder sect for more than 10 years, except for the second year when I officially entered the Imperial Thunder sect and met Uncle at Misty Mountain once. I have never contacted Uncle in all these years. This time, this concubine came out to gain experience. I want to go back and see them. Shue said hesitantly. Why not? Xiaohua said with a smile, where is Misty Mountain? Is it on the way? Although it is not on the way, there is no need to go too far, after all, there is a teleportation formation. Shue's face revealed a happy expression, however, I am a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, rashly returning to the sect, I am afraid it is not appropriate, right? Your master didn't let you return. No, master only let you make the decision, she doesn't care where you go to gain experience. Shue naturally understood Xiaohua's meaning. Haha, that's right. Your husband is a loose cultivator and has nothing to do with your Misty Mountain. It's precisely because I want to go to the Misty Mountain to gain experience. What can the elders in the sect say? Xiaohua said proudly. Hee, husband is indeed wise. Shue's face lit up with joy. When Xiaohua told this matter to Xiang Yang muttered to himself, my Imperial Thunder sect has always prohibited disciples from contacting their own family without the sect's permission, junior sister Shue's actions are really inappropriate. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for it. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.